This video is a response, and to some degree a continuation of my last video titled Addressing the Commenters on my last video, which was a response to my epic video, McDo vs Traditionalism vs Feminism vs MRM. I have taken note that most people didn't like the speed of my last video. I'll be honest, it didn't feel right to me either, so I won't do the 10% speed up again. Some have told me try 8% or 5%, unfortunately I can only speed it up in increments of 10% to a maximum of 200% speed. The other type of speeding up would raise the pitch. The other way of speeding things up would be to take the speed setting on this text-to-speech program and bump it up another level. However, that controls the word spoken speed, while leaving the pronunciation pauses at its default, which makes the reading of words come out sounding more erratic and spastic, almost like William Shatner on speed. In this video, I will be addressing many of your comments, so I guess that's an incentive to keep watching through this thing, because if you left a stupid comment on my last video, there is a pretty good chance I am sticking it in here and addressing it. I even addressed a few people that made good points, and of course, I will end this video with the second half of the last video I had snipped out. Today the focus of this continuation, while to some degree is about traditionalism, is mostly going to be about libertarians. Notice the focus is on libertarians and not libertarianism. Slight distinction here: libertarianism is a political philosophy. I am not going to dissect a political philosophy as good or bad, or whatever. I have no need for that. Theoretically, I am libertarian, but I am not a libertarian in practice. One of the reasons is that for all of the good ideas from within the libertarian philosophy, it is all ultimately corrupted by too many nutty people calling themselves libertarians, which ultimately make up the mentality of the libertarian movement. I will be focusing on the more nutty side of libertarians, those libertarian extremists, the ones that say the utmost baseless batshit crazy things such as taxes are theft. What I want to do before I get into addressing my audience's comments, is to break down the psychology of the libertarian, thereby treating the libertarian movement as a personality type. And if we conclude that this personality type is unhealthy, then we are examining a personality disorder. Again, I am talking about the mental collective of the movement, not the principles in which libertarian theory is based on. Let's start with the conspiracy theorist. Yes, I know not all libertarians are conspiracy theorists. However, let's be honest, you'd be hard-pressed to find a conspiracy theorist that wasn't a libertarian. There can be no denying that the libertarian movement is wrought with conspiracy nuts such as the 9/11 truthers and the John Birch Society and the like. And the reason is rather obvious, and I will be laying that out in a moment. As I see it, the conspiracy theorist is merely a libertarian extremist. So even the non-conspiracy theorist libertarian still has a part of that mentality in him. For the purpose of this breakdown, I will not be including conspiracy theorists who are mentally ill, such as those suffering from actual paranoia, which is a delusion and is mostly associated with schizophrenia. I am not including people who have any type of psychosis, and to be honest, most people who are conspiracy theorists do not actually suffer from legit clinical paranoia. Most conspiracy theorists are as sane as anyone else, same intelligence and so on. The conspiracy theorist is distrusting of other people, especially people with authority. Paradoxically, these people tend to have authoritarian personalities. I know, it sounds crazy, that a person, due to their personality quirk or disorder, is distrusting of others with authority, yet are authoritarian and seek out regiment, and are prone to follow strong charismatic leaders. An interesting thing about the authoritarian personality is they tend to blame others for their personal failures. The most consistent trait among the conspiracy theorist, according to my observation, and according to psychology studies, and according to common sense, is they feel a loss of control and a sense of powerlessness. The loss of control I refer to is the locus of control, meaning an internal or external perception of control on a topic of body weight. For example, a person with an internal locus of control believes their body weight is dependent upon their own chosen lifestyle. That is, I am fat because I eat junk food and I am lazy. A person with an external locus of control would say I am fat because I was born with bad genetics. Because the fast food industry deliberately makes their food more fattening to get customers to buy more food. I am fat because of all the high fructose corn syrup in our food and beverages that slow down the metabolism, and the food companies do this because high fructose corn syrup is cheaper, and because they want to make people fat so that they eat more. Another example of the internal and external locus of control would be a person that was late for work. The person with the internal locus of control would say I shouldn't have hit the snooze alarm that last time. I should have had my things ready and sitting by the door. I should have had the gas tank filled up last night in preparation for today, then I wouldn't have been late. A person with external locus of control would say I wouldn't have been late if it weren't for all those damn red lights. I wouldn't have been late if the bus would have moved faster. or if someone hadn't taken my parking spot and forced me to drive around those extra few minutes. Psychology studies, mostly by Julian B. Rotter, who developed the locus of control theory, have shown that people with external locus of control tend to be more stressed, prone to anxiety, and depressed, than those with an internal locus of control. Studies have not shown gender differences, but noted that people born to large families with a single-parent mom tend to have external locus of control. Studies have shown that people of lower socio-economic classes tend to have more external locus of control. Studies have also shown that African Americans have higher external locus of control than white people, even when socio-economic status has been accounted for. I think this is one of the things in psychology where it is painfully obvious that genetics and brain chemicals cannot be the culprit. People who are born poor, raised in rough, dangerous ghettos, develop external locus of control because during their developing years they were subject to an unstable and dangerous environment where they were often victimized by chance of environment. Think about it. Compare the guy who got hurt because he was swinging from a tree. He is likely to learn that swinging from a tree is dangerous and stupid, and he is paying the consequence for this risk-taking behavior. The guy in the ghetto who got hurt in the ghetto, from being beaten up, on his way to the store, is going to take from it that shit happens. He has no control over the circumstance. People with less money find themselves in deep trouble the day their car breaks down, the day their hours are cut, the moment someone in the family gets sick and needs to go to the doctors. Any financial problem at all ends up having major consequences, making the individual feel like a helpless victim of chance, because in a way, he is, at least relative to the individual with loads of cash, who can just whip out his cell phone and have his insurance company tow his car and give him a rental, or who can take a reduction in job hours without having to make lifestyle sacrifices as a result. This is a person who, by virtue of money, is more flexible in hard economic times. The study that shows that people born to large single-parent families reveals that when you have many brothers and sister, and only one guardian, the environment is chaotic. Your chances of getting caught, scolded, rewarded, attended to, is more random, due to chaotic environment. Thus life is all about your chances. Your actions have little consequences. In the African American community, there is a general vibe that they as African Americans aren't counted in the system. They are the second class, the leftover, the forgotten, the unwanted. They are victims of a white society geared towards white interest. Whatever white people want, whatever white people do, is what happens. What the nation does, whatever the white nation does, whatever choices they make, will impact the African Americans. But nothing the African Americans want will change the nation, affect the white society, so they are powerless, at the mercy of white interest. This vibe exists even in middle-class African Americans. It's simply the result of identifying as the thing which is not the majority. This increases the external locus of control. I think it should be obvious, this mentality is a product of environment. Those born to a situation where they feel like they are without agency, they are without choice, are more susceptible to environmental chance than those who are born in a situation where they are given agency and thus do have choice and control over their environment. But this becomes a part of their personality, not just a momentary reaction to the environment, but an overall outlook. The real danger is that it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. The more they approach life with a damned if I do, damned if I don't mentality, the mentality of maybe today will be my lucky day, it's all a matter of chance. The more they think this way, the more they behave in a reckless chance-driven way, the more they experience a chance-driven outcome, and normally of the negative kind. Since they behave more reckless than the person who believes actions have consequences, rather than all actions have chances, the higher frequency of negative occurrences this person is exposed to, the more he develops a bad luck complex. This is where the knee-jerk "it wasn't my fault, all the lights turned red, the bus in front of me wouldn't go, some asshole took my parking spot" mentality comes from. This person will develop stress as a result of the lower negative occurrences. This person will develop more anxiety in life, since anxiety is rooted in fearing an outcome you have no control over, and the end result is depression. Now remember earlier when I said the conspiracy theorist has a distrust of authority? Well, a distrust of authority is really just a manifestation of the external locus. Since you are not in control of your life, your environment is. Those around you, your environment, are in control of you. Those who have the most amount of authority have the greatest potential to do you harm. Thus you have a fear and distrust of authority figures. While I have not come across any studies on whether abuse plays into the development of the external locus of control, I do suspect that anyone who was raised in an abusive environment will develop an external locus of control, assuming that abuse was unpredictable, such as maybe daddy will come home sober and happy, maybe he will come home drunk and yell at me, or worse yet, hit me or molest me again. And of course this would lead to a distrust of authority. Actually, any abuse, consistent or inconsistent, will lead to a distrust of authority. But I insist the unpredictable abusive environment, which is most abusive environments, will produce the external locus of control, a person that is distrusting of others, especially authority, and feels that their environment has control over them, and they are just powerless, and begins living out a reckless lifestyle, always blaming other people or things for their problems, when taken to the extreme, becomes a conspiracy theorist. Remember my example of the person not taking responsibility for their own obesity? Look how quickly it's not my fault, it's bad genetics and low quality of food, that can so quickly evolve into. The quality of food is bad, and thus fattening, because big greedy corporations want to save a buck and use lower quality ingredients, they don't care who they hurt, and from that evolves into, I'm fat because the food industry deliberately makes people fat so that the people eat more food. Do you see how that denial of responsibility escalates? And notice this will happen in other scenarios. As simple as not taking responsibility for one's own obesity can escalate into a conspiracy theory to justify his obesity, so too can other health problems lead to suspicions that it's the drugs they give us that make us sick. Vaccines cause autism in our kids. The industry is lying about AIDS. It's all a conspiracy to make money and to keep you sick so that you keep going to the doctors so that they give you more drugs which will only make you sicker, and you spend your life on a million different drugs paying all that money while Big Pharma laughs at our misery and counts their trillions of dollars. Big Pharma is evil man. Now the problem with the conspiracy theorist, or just the extreme external locus of control personality, is that these people have a fear. Logically, distrust becomes a fear gone to the point of being irrational, is a phobia. People with such a phobia, when the cause of their fear is known, are easy to manipulate, in the same way that the person who lives a reckless lifestyle believing in chance and bad luck, will in fact create a self-fulfilling prophecy of bad luck, so too will the man who is very distrusting, believing everyone is out to get him. Experience people taking advantage of him. The fear of the thing happening, tends to make that very thing happen. Those who get so caught up in fighting Big Pharma often get suckered into the holistic healing culture, which is infinitely more dishonest and dangerous than the actual pharmaceutical industry. People beating their liver up with mega dosages of vitamins to ward off disease. People packing their body with poorly regulated herbal extracts, in the false belief that they are flushing out toxins and giving their body healing herbs, because science isn't better than nature. These people spend countless amounts of dollars on bogus cures and bogus treatments, and bogus remedies to fortify their body to ward off disease, and in many cases are only making their bodies significantly more toxic. Those who have an irrational phobia of government, are easily manipulated by the corporations. The corporations are exploiting people, or dumping toxic waste somewhere. The environmentalists start pushing government. Government decides to consider a regulation. Corporations hear about this regulation and instantly start paying their libertarian political representatives to alert their fellow libertarian that Big Guff is interfering with the free market. They're trying to tax them if they won't comply. Tax is theft. You got to come running to corporate rescue and save free market from the evil forces of Obama and his Kenyan commie buddies. And the libertarian buys it hook, line and sinker, just like the herbalist on their raw vegan diet buying the newest colon cleansing nonsense. Those who have a great fear are ripe for exploitation. The sad irony is, those who most fear being controlled by others, make themselves a target for just that. The fear of big government is rooted in the realization that government decisions have the power to affect their lives. Notice a common theme with the libertarian is wanting to get government out of our lives. This is because he feels his life is out of control, and sees government, the ultimate authority, as being the one in control of his life. The belief is with less government comes more freedom, more personal choice, more control over his own life. This isn't completely false, but it's blown greatly out of proportion. The corporate world has infinitely more control over your life than does government. I want you to think about this, just how much of your day-to-day life is honestly being directly impacted by government. You wake up bright and early at 8 a.m., not because the government has a gun to your head, but because you have to go to work or your boss will fire you. Corporation, you spend half your conscious day at your job. Government having nothing to do with this. Your work environment, how pleasant is it? Does it involve heavy lifting? Does it involve working in the heat? How many breaks do you get? Do you get a chance to sit down when your back is getting tired? Or are you forced to keep working and risk back injury from overworked muscles? Do you have to wear a uniform? If so, is it practical? Is it comfortable? Did the company give it to you or did you have to pay for it? Is the loud machinery? Do they offer you hearing protection or even allow you to wear hearing protection? Do they offer you tools and safety goggles and hard hats and other essentials you need to do your job and do it safely? Or do you have to pay for all this yourself? How clean is the air you are breathing in? What about the lighting? Is it bright enough to see? Do the fluorescent lights flicker, causing eye strain? Are you allowed to take a 20-minute break at will if your eyes get strained from staring at the monitor? Are you allowed to stand up and stretch your legs every hour? If your wrists become overworked, are you allowed to just stop typing for a while? If you are diabetic, is your blood sugar level going down because you are sitting there waiting for corporate permission to go get food? How bad is just having a job hurting your health? And when all is said and done, does the company pay you the amount of money you think you deserve for being its slave? Does the amount of money you have affect the way you live? And people get all paranoid that the government is watching us, the government is spying on us. Okay, to some small degree this is true, but it's actually the corporations doing most of the spying. However, I really can't support the government stepping in on this one. After all, your use of Google is a privilege and a choice, not a right afforded to you by the Constitution and enforced by government. You tell the government Google shouldn't have the right to spy on you, and they're going to tell you that Google didn't have a right to spy on you, until you decided you wanted to use their various services free of charge and agreed to allow them to collect data for that privilege. So while I am most certainly not saying we must petition government to restrict Google, I am just reminding you that all those free and convenient apps you have on your phone are collecting more data about you in a month than the government has in your lifetime. But again, it's government out to get you. Look at how much of your life is spent being controlled and in some way affected by corporation. Now ask yourself, how much does Obama actually impact your actual life? And even when government erects a law that affects your options in life, actual options you most likely would have taken, how often is that government just flexing its mighty authority? And how much of that was caused by fanatical citizens protesting and demanding their political representatives enact some law? Look at the prohibition laws on alcohol. Government isn't the one that illegalized alcohol. The government acted on behalf of the citizens, which is their job and purpose. If you're looking for someone to blame, don't blame the evil tyrants in the government. Blame the Christian temperance movement who protested and pushed until government finally capitulated. And look at the reinstitutionalization of alcohol. That wasn't actually government giving people that right back. That was the government acting on behalf of the people. The people spoke up that bootlegging and the mafia had increased so much that it would just be better to undo prohibition. If no citizen wanted prohibition, it wouldn't have come into being. If no citizen wanted to end prohibition, it wouldn't have ended when it did come into being. And if porn gets banned, don't scream get government out of our lives. Scream get prudish citizens out of our lives. It will be the feminists hollering porn inspires rape culture. It will be the Christians talking about how it corrupts our youth with sinful thought. It will be the psychologists that want to pathologize everything that will start pulling bogus rigged studies and screaming oh no, porn desensitizes us to sex, causing sexual dysfunction and sexual preoccupation and sex addiction. It creates porn addiction, which is a serious and underdiagnosed condition found in 99% of people. It's an epidemic of epidemic proportions. It will be the media, the journalists to push all this alarmism onto the public. It will be the conservatives and their sanctity of marriage and nuclear family that scream how porn hurts the family and porn is anti-family values. And housewives everywhere will scream won't someone think of the children. The Republican Party will push for a porn ban under the guise of family values. And then the ban will be enacted, and then the libertarians and the pro-porn people will scream oh my god, get government out of our lives. And others still will call it a conspiracy by the Illuminati to control us, like in the George Orwell novel 1984 with its reference to the anti-sex brigade. This, people, is how we lose our freedom. It isn't government acting like a bully that has nothing better to do than ban our booze and ban our porn. It's fanatical assholes, our fellow citizens, that do this shit. Government is and always has been and always will be, to some degree corrupt. I think that's a given, but corrupt or not, so long as it is reasonable, it does just enact what the people demand. The squeakiest wheel gets the most grease. A lot of people will argue that it shouldn't be that way. The squeakiest wheel shouldn't get the most grease. But I say, why shouldn't it? If a politician says to the population, are you in favor or against gay marriage? And 5% shout we're against it and 10% shout we're in favor of it and the other 85% say nothing. You do understand, that squeakiest wheel, the 10% is technically the majority, since the 5 and 10% were the only ones that cared one way or the other. Who knows, maybe that 85% was also against gay marriage, but you don't know that because they never spoke up. Most people are passive, go with the flow. Oh sure, they care enough to toss their 2 cents into the conversation at the bar. But they don't seriously care enough to drive 9 hours to join a protest, so it's not like they care all that much. Imagine you are driving a car with your friends and family, and you say alright, do we stop at Burger King or McDonald's? and out of the 10 passengers, 3 says Burger King and 1 says McDonald's, the other 6 shrug their shoulders and say nothing. Well, if your car is a democracy, the majority just said Burger King. If any of the other 6 had a problem with it, they should have spoke up and let you know, shouldn't they? So the squeakiest wheel gets the most grease, because the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few, and even if the only people to speak were a minority, there were the minority that cared enough to weigh in. Therefore you take the 2 sides of those who cared enough to weigh in, and decide which of them was the many, and which of them was the few. My point is, government, that thing you think has a monopoly on your life, has very little effect on your life, and the effect it does have is mostly the government doing its job, doing the very thing it was put there to do, act on behalf of the majority, or just the majority of those who spoke up, which means it's we the people, your fellow citizens, that are pushing for the laws that ultimately slap your hand and tell you what you can't do. And again, how often do you want to do something, but are prevented by government? And when I ask this, I am talking about something reasonable, not stuff like I can't just steal my neighbor's Corvette and go for a ride. Okay, but in what society has anyone been permitted to just up and take someone else's shit? When has there not been a rule against that? Maybe you can't get married because you're gay, and live in a state where it is still illegal. Well, ask yourself this: if 90% of the people of your state changed their mind and openly and loudly supported gay marriage, do you think the government would seriously just not acknowledge your right to get married? So it's not government, it's your fellow citizens who don't approve of gay marriage. Maybe you're on the other side of this coin. Maybe you are saying gays done forced government to acknowledge gay marriage. They put their bastardized gay marriage on par with my heterosexual marriage. Okay, but government didn't just up and do it out of boredom. Clearly the problem you have is with your fellow citizens that the government acted on behalf of. However, to be completely honest, gays having a right to get married does not take away from you. But the point is, all the shit you can't do, that government forbids you to do, is more the fault of your fellow citizen than it is the fault of the government acting on their behalf. Which is really interesting that I see people, libertarians, creating an us and them mentality, us citizens, versus that government. We the people, should be free to do what we want, get government out of our lives. But what you really mean to say is, hey assholes pushing for government to restrict me, fuck you, and you get out of my life. So this whole nonsense about we the people versus the government, it's bullshit. The government doesn't control your life. The forces that determine the quality of your life is almost exclusively your health. The corporations, this includes your personal money which you only have via corporate world, and your fellow citizens who vote together to put their foot down and tell you what you can't do. You might think you don't like the traffic laws. Government needs to get out of your life and let you drive the way you want. The government, as a collective body, as the thing unto itself, doesn't personally care about your driving habits. However, the citizens took note that it is essential that people drive to get to where they need to go. They took note that some people lacked common sense and drove in ways that were reckless and endangered everyone else. A few bad apples were ruining the whole cart. Therefore they insist something be done about these hoodlums racing up and down the road. So obviously those responsible for paving the road, with tax money, decided some common sense laws were in order, and between the states and the citizens of those states, laws were made to help keep driving a safe experience. Different states and different counties have different driving laws, because each state has a different amount of roads, different driving conditions, different amount of drivers, different driving patterns among its citizens. Laws are not just written willy-nilly by this self-imposed force that conquered us and call themselves government, who stands there with a boot on our neck, controlling and humiliating and violating us like a rapist, getting off on his power and control over us. That is not what is going on here, but some people can feel this way. Again, I will not deny that there is corruption in our government. Some of this corruption is just bad people, but a lot of it is also the corporations that fund these politicians' election campaign. Another part is the brain-dead idiots that make up the electoral public. Another part of the problem is those who control the media, acting as shepherds, controlling the sheeple. And if it wasn't those controlling the media that influence our thought, it'd be the churches. But this video isn't meant to be a promotion of pro-government, or socialism, or authoritarianism, but a foundational understanding of what people should already be aware of. Humans function in a collective, because a collection is stronger and more prosperous than being individuals. Our brains are even wired to be socially interactive creatures. We are herd animals, which makes it all the more hilarious when people like Rocking Mystery promotes individualism so heavily, that makes so many appeals to nature, and just not catching on to the fact that nature makes us collective beings, herd animals, gives us a pack mentality. We are individuals, but we give up some of that individualism to be part of the collective. Now again, this is not an endorsement of communism, which takes it to the other extreme, and wants to purge as much individualism as possible from us, and make everyone responsible for everyone else, and which prevents people from succeeding above others or falling behind the status quo. I am merely saying the preaching of individualism, in its extreme, is also wrong because we are not individualist solitary hunters, we are a collective. This is how we are wired, and this is what works, and you have to part with some individual liberties to be part of a collective. In our collective, our society, we must have an official, agreed upon, authority figure, to handle disputes among the collective of individuals. This authority is called government. It has been agreed upon by the people, that these elected individuals willing to take on the responsibility of managing and governing the community, have the authority to do their job. Therefore the government does have a right to use force. If the government has no right to use force, it is incapable of performing the very function it was created, by the people, to do. This elected group, elected to govern the people on behalf of the people, cannot do this task without resources. Since they are busy doing what they do, they can't make money on the side and then perform their government duty as an act of charity. They need to eat and feed their families. So if all their free time is taken up performing the task we elected them to do, it is up to us to pay them. If paying them were voluntary, then no one would pay them and the system can't function. Therefore, a mandatory tax must be imposed on the people, forcing them to pay the money to their elected official authority figures. Government. The government is like an employee. They perform a task for you, and you have to pay them a salary. We all have to pay them a salary since they do this job for all of us, not just me, not just you, all of us. Therefore all of us pay, and if I am handing the mayor and my congressman a paycheck out of my money, all I can tell you is you better be doing this too. In fact, I need to look through your finances, and make sure I know how much of your money needs to be paid. Because why should I be handing them 30% of my paycheck, and just assuming you're doing the same? I have to know you are in fact paying the specific agreed to amount. So how do I do that? Should I walk into your house, dig through your records, count your purchases, and do the math myself, and then take the money out of your hand to make sure it really is going to the politicians we owe? I don't think you'd like me and every other random Joe doing this. So how about we set up an official group of people whose job it is to do this? We'll call them the IRS. We, the citizens, are consenting to give them authority to investigate money any citizen earned, and to take the appropriate amount, by force if necessary. So when the IRS shows up on your doorstep, they are not an invading army or a group of thugs that have no right to be there, no right to look through your finances and no right to take your shit. They have every right. We the community gave them the authority to do this. We agreed to this. By being part of our community, you are agreeing that these people have the right to look through your shit and take what you lawfully owe the state. If you do not agree to this, then leave the community. Your existence within our community is an act of consenting to the rules of the community, and when the elected authority figures, whose job it is to manage the community needs, and act as the authority to do this, is demanded by the people that roads be built for the betterment of the community, where do you think the money should come from? You can't expect to hire the mayor to do his job, and then use his own paycheck to build roads for the whole community. That's ridiculous. Even if we paid him a ridiculous amount of personal money to do his job, we could never trust that he'd part with his own money in the best interest of the people. That's just being ridiculous. So in addition to paying his salary, which never has to be spent on community projects, he's merely paid to authorize and oversee them, not to pay for them. We must give our officials a collection plate which he can draw from to finance these community projects. He never gets to keep this money, he may only draw from it for community projects. That way he is sure to spend the money on what really benefits the community. The collection plate is limited, so he has to be careful where the money goes. This collection plate can't be funded by a voluntary principle. Oh sure you could if you wanted, up and throw millions of your own dollars into the collection plate, as a matter of charity. But, people, all of us, have to pay a certain amount into it each year. This again is called taxes. Since we all benefit from the projects this collection pays for, then we all need to be paying into it. We can't make it a voluntary thing any more than we can make paying for goods and services a voluntary thing. No restaurant can stay in business with rules like all you can eat, pay as much as you want, or pay nothing at all. Your choice. Can you imagine a car dealership saying that? Drive what you want, as many of them as you want, pay whatever you want for this privilege, whenever you feel like getting around to it, or don't bother paying at all. Tell me, if you owned a car dealership, would you run your business like that? I don't think so. So paying is mandatory, and again, the money must go to the collection plate. You can't pick and choose where your money goes. If we could all pay for only the projects we feel like paying for, then why have a mayor? Why have an elected local official? If we can manage our own shit out of the collective good ideas and collective good intentions, then why have a government? The answer is simple. We can't. We can't have a society without laws, all just getting along and investing their money and time in the way to benefit the community as a whole. We can't. It's why we demanded there be authority figures to manage us, to govern us. We simply can't leave it up to each individual to know where his money has to go. Look at the situation right now. The average person probably doesn't know who the mayor of his own county is. Probably doesn't know the name of his own state's governor. This is how far removed we are from all the complexity of our own community. That bridge you drove across today, how much did it cost to make? How much is its upkeep? I doubt you know, because you, the individual, cannot keep up with the million and one needs of the community and live your own life. This is why we have a freaking government. I know this is not the most accurate way of explaining government and taxes, and I am not giving you concrete facts backed up by a link for each proclamation. There is a reason for this. I am giving you a kindergarten understanding of government and taxes, using kindergarten language and examples, because if you assume government is just a hostile militant force infringing upon your rights, and is a thing that needs to be fought against, and that it has no right to take your money in the form of taxes, then you clearly have a kindergarten mentality. So I am basically sitting here with hand puppets telling small children why government is not an evil group of thugs who exist for the sole purpose of bullying them, and why adults need to pay a portion of their income to these people called the government. I am sitting here using hand puppets, because I am explaining a concept I thought we all knew, and the truth is, I think all these people, these libertarians that say shit like taxation is theft, once upon a time understood that paying taxes was not theft. So then, how did they come to forget this? Simple. Due to their mental state, their fear and distrust, they got pulled into an ideology, and became forever more extreme in this ideology. Among a collective of extremists spouting their nonsensical rhetoric, certain phrases were being tossed out. These phrases and their meanings had a strong emotional impact. Once it became a thing they wanted to believe, those skilled with grammar and imagination continuously cooked up nonsensical justifications for this way of thought. And eventually what you end up having is an idiotic idea being tossed out with catchphrases and slogans and being justified with more catchphrases and in some cases long-winded ramblings based on nonsensical fictitious political philosophies as absent of fact and truth as any religion. And now on to responding to my commenters.
If I were to mate with a woman and have children, if I didn't have my wages taxed, if I didn't have my property taxed, if I didn't have to surrender to sales taxes for the goods I purchased, I could easily afford to pay for daycare, or better yet, me or my woman could earn enough for one of us to remain home and be our children's primary caregiver. There is nothing that children learn in grades K through 8 that most parents couldn't teach their children by age 10. After that, I could easily afford private schools of my children's choice. Like someone here already commented, what is the point of having children if you're just going to send them off to daycare and then school when they're older? Wake up at 7 a.m. Get the kids ready and to school by 8 o'clock and myself to work by 9 o'clock. Get out of work at 5 o'clock, be home by 5:30ish. Shower, freshen up, prepare dinner with the wife, help the kids with their homework. Get some exercise with the family and do something outside, bonding. Get some alone time with the wife, marital maintenance. Do this Monday to Friday. And on the weekends maybe maintain my social relationships and see the extended family, etc. Very little of the time is spent being a parent. If I ever have children, I'd want them to have an actual parental presence that was consistent and stable. Not a rotating door of nannies, caregivers, teachers etc. who spend more time with them than we do.
The first part of what you said, about if taxes weren't being taken out of your pocket you'd be able to afford daycare without government assistance etc. Well, the argument if taxes weren't taken out of my pay, I'd have more money and not need assistance is an argument I think a lot of people have, and I'd like to see them put that into practice, paying not only for the car, the insurance, the gas, but also for the expensive privilege of driving on corporate roads, since taxes wouldn't pay for roads, and your uber expensive corporate driver's license which would only be valid on that company's roads, and you'd have to pay an additional cost per mile to drive on a road by a corporate competitor, unless of course you upgraded to their premium driver's licenses plan, which would cost you $0 for the first year, an obligate 20-year contract, and pay $500 for every year after that, and have your minimum yearly payment increase by 200% for every late payment, and of course your corporate options would be limited by which car you bought, kinda like our phone plans. This is what corporate America looks like when everything is handed over to the corporations. You'd have to pay each time the police or firefighters arrived, you'd have to pay for your children's school directly, and so on and so forth. So if you made really good money, you might have an argument, but if you're not wealthy, you're not going to make it. This bit about you or your wife could stay at home and be the caregiver, You mean to say your wife would be the caregiver? No, seriously, in nearly all cases, when it comes to, honey, want to stay home and relax with the kids, or work like a slave, they like the staying at home option, and because of this, she makes the rules. She stays at home like a pampered queen, you work like a slave, and when your dick no longer satisfies her, or a wealthier man takes interest in her, she will leave you, and she will get the child, because she's the caregiver, not you, and you will have to pay for the child, because God knows taxes can't do it, and our society effectively runs the exact way it runs now. Then you say this: there is nothing that children learn in grades K through 8 that most parents couldn't teach their children by age 10. How many parents are really going to teach anything to their kids? Before public school, illiteracy was very common. But if mum and dad learned to read, then they would have taught their children to read, who would have taught their children to read ad infinitum. In the real world, most parents can't be bothered to intellectually discipline their kids and put so much effort into educating them. Therefore, one dysfunctional mom and dad that doesn't teach their kids, raises illiterate mums and dads, ad infinitum. And on another note, it's only through grades kindergarten to 5th grade that schools actually teach children anything useful. After that, their time is being wasted. They graduate grade 12 at age 18, can't tell you the difference between an adjective and a pronoun, thinks S stands for salt on the periodic table, lives in the United States of America, and when asked to name a country that begins with U, hesitates and answers, Yugoslavia, and isn't qualified to be more than a fry cook, after learning to read, write, and do basic math. What in the fuck is actually taught to kids? Probably how to be social justice warriors arguing between leftism and rightism, caught in that mind trap so that they never think outside the box. But anyhow, any parent that doesn't teach their kids to read and write, will raise illiterate adults, who will go on to fuck and breed like rabbits, and breed lots of illiterate kids. Your basic premise here is, I shouldn't have to pay taxes because I can do it on my own. Okay, and what about those that can't? You might teach your kids to read and write. But are you sure all the alcoholic daddies and webcammed working mamas are going to pull it off? And what good is living in a society that progressively gets more and more illiterate, because no public schooling? Again, even if 9 out of 10 parents educated their children, that 1 out of 10 that doesn't, just brought illiterate parents into being, who cannot teach their children. And if every generation has just 1 out of the remaining 10 that doesn't teach their kids, the problem grows and grows until what you have is, only wealthy kids get an education, and the poor are illiterate and worthless, and the nation as a whole suffers from it. Again, tax-funded public education, even if it does suck, is better than expecting the parents to do it on their own. I'm sorry, but the argument that if no one paid taxes, we'd all be richer and better for it, is an anarchist's argument against the existence of society. However, I want to let you know I took a long while to respond, because what you wrote was a fair and intelligent argument. No, really, in spite of the fact I ultimately disagree, it was an intelligent argument, unlike this guy.
You're theoretically libertarian. Bullshit. You routinely worship the state, calling for the state to do what you want it to do. And then call libertarians irrational. Definitions: 1. Epistemic rationality, the method of obtaining an accurate view of reality. 2. Instrumental rationality, the method of achieving your goals, whatever they are. At about 1800 hours you rant about all the ways the government is wrecking the economy and then want the very same government to do your bidding. The very same government that gave the power to feminists to wreak their havoc. That is a colossal failure of instrumental rationality. Oh, and you conveniently didn't refute the claim that women are wrecking the economy, you just diverted attention to larger causes. That's dishonest. And you never, ever, concede that government programs are implemented under the threat of force. That is a colossal failure of epistemic rationality. You are the one that is demonstrably irrational.
Forgive the weird pronunciations of some of those words, it's a fundamental flaw with this text-to-speech program. When I write my own sentences, I sometimes have to rephrase things so it flows and pronounces better, but when I am quoting someone, I have to just hope there is nothing about the sentence structure that causes it to get weird, like one moment saying epistemic and then saying the exact same word as epistemic, for no reason. Anyhow, I routinely worship the state. Really? This is something I routinely do? I have once, I think twice, suggested that a way of getting around blank would be to have government force blank to happen in its place, which may incur taxes. I have done this once, possibly twice. I keep feeling I have made a similar argument in the past but can't remember, so out of nearly 100 videos, I have done this twice, and that's routinely worshipping the government. Or if you are referring to me saying a law needs to be changed, and this call for change is what you are equating to government worship, then all I can say is, next time someone says AVFM or our movement hasn't resulted in even one law getting changed, just remember changing a law equals government worship in the eyes of at least this one libertarian, again, assuming that's even what you meant by routinely worshipping the government. But if all you're talking about is the once or twice I suggest a program that ran on taxes, then I could hardly call that routine worship. If you on the other hand believe that out of 50 hours of speeches, making one or two proposals for tax-funded state programs is government worship, I think you are making an excellent case for my accusation of big goverphobia and taxophobia. This part here I am not even sure about. You routinely worship the state, calling for the state to do what you want it to do. What's the problem? The state, and Fed for that matter, does what women want it to do. It does what the rich elite wants it to do. It does what big corp wants it to do. Most of the time, it does what it wants to do. But having it do what I want it to do is wrong. Having it benefit Joe Average for once, is wrong. Having it benefit men as much as, or instead of, women, is wrong. I'm not sure I follow. In a republic such as America, the government's job is to do what the people want it to do. Am I supposed to interpret your statement that demanding the state do something, is wrong, because there should be no state, no government to begin with? Again, I'm curious to know why the state pandering to women is one thing, but me wanting it to pander to men is totally off the table. Or, again, is the argument here that the state doing anything whatsoever, an act of evil, because government should be abolished? If government needs to be abolished, you are not a libertarian, you are an anarchist, and good luck with that. Good luck with 300 million people all just magically getting along, piled on top of each other, thriving and prospering with no laws, and no authority. Let me know how that works out.
At about the 18-minute mark, you rant about all the ways the government is wrecking the economy and then want the very same government to do your bidding.
Yes, the government, and its idiotic voters, are doing a bad job. They need to stop doing it wrong and start doing it right. Either your argument here is that government is doing it just perfect now, or that government need not exist.
The very same government that gave the power to feminists to wreak their havoc.
Yes, the very same. They need to quit pandering to feminists to run amok, and start pandering to us, and hopefully we won't run amok, and if we do, better us than them.
And you conveniently didn't refute the claim that women are wrecking the economy, you just diverted attention to larger causes. That's dishonest.
I thought it was a given that feminism is hurting the economy on some level. I am claiming that in the grand scheme of things, feminism is a drop in the bucket of what is hurting our economy. Yes, they're still hurting it. But let's not get so hysterical, fanatical, and develop a tunnel vision that treats feminism as the one and only problem humankind has had, has now, or ever will have. Let's not pretend feminism is this giant monolithic entity that all the world's evils come from, and if we can just bellyache about it long enough, feminism will go away, and once it goes away, happy blissful peace on earth.
And you never, ever, concede that government programs are implemented under the threat of force.
I didn't think I had to. I thought that was a given. In a society there are rules. I was sure we all had the brain power to know this, and these rules have to be enforced. Again, I assumed we all knew this, and those who enforced the rules must have the authority to do so. Again, I thought we all understood this, and those that are granted authority must be able to, as a last resort, use force to coerce individuals to comply with the laws of a society. Again, this is common sense. I didn't think I had to spell it out. I also forgot to mention that rocks are hard, water is wet, fire is hot. Again, just assumed people knew this, and I had no idea that the issue of government using force to implement rules was something I was being asked to confirm or refute.
That is a colossal failure of epistemic rationality.
You are a colossal failure of epistemic rationality.
I'm not fond of the whole daycare thing. It seems like, I had a baby, now I'll hire someone else to raise it so I can go work hard to afford daycare plus all my other bills. I don't have an easy solution, since even two parents have to work nowadays to make ends meet. It's just a shitty situation no matter which way you slice it.
Well, I think it is better that for a few years daycare take care of the kid while the mother is off to work, paying taxes, earning money, buying things, investing money, climbing the ladder, paying even more of her taxes, than it is for her to say I just had a baby. I want free welfare coming out of the pockets of hard-working men. It seems like the lesser of the two evils, and that's really how we're going to have to function. We have to look at it in a way where we lower the damage, rather than holding out for a flawless system that benefits 100% of the people 100% of the time, because that sort of utopian idealism doesn't happen. And I think Alex Rennert had a pretty good reply to you. I agree with where you're at. But on the other hand, if you have a parent who doesn't want to waste their precious time interacting with their spawn, isn't it better that the kid ends up in daycare, so they're looked after by someone who's paid to at least pretend to care about the poor little bastard? Neglect fucks kids up psychologically. I think even paid for attention would probably be healthier than none at all. Just a thought.
Okay, now you are just rolling down the hill. Read Julian Simon's book on the ultimate resource. Second, go live in a third world country and realize why people have a lot of kids. You will find out that poor having a lot of kids is not just a welfare scenario, nor is it a nothing to lose scenario. There is more to it. And no, you cannot be naive enough to pretend that women will ever work 50/50 no matter what you do. That will never happen, and yet your inane stupidity of taxation for betterment of society continues. And who the fuck cares what regulations you advocate? You have no authority to interfere with the interactions of others. It is great that people like you are in the majority and spout nonsense in the guise of actually knowing things, and create regulations that drive industries out of the first world. Carry on. And if it comes down to siding with regulatory retards versus the tiny business or the richest megacorporation there is, those that understand how the world works will always side against you, mostly because all you have is stupidity and blind faith. It is so lovely to see the megacorporations writing the regulations that you regulatory retards support. I love to see people eaten by the monsters they themselves create. Carry on. By all means continue doing what has led the entire society to this point.
Oh Lord, where to begin?
Read Julian Simon's book on the ultimate resource.
No, you can summarize. If you read it and understood it, you can certainly summarize the relevant portions. You cite books as sources for your proclamations, not because you are too ignorant to make the argument yourself.
Second, go live in a third world country and realize why people have a lot of kids.
No, you go live in a third world country. I'm not moving to fucking Haiti, because you have a disagreement with me, or is this being offered as an alternative to buying a book?
You will find out that poor having a lot of kids is not just a welfare scenario, nor is it a nothing to lose scenario. There is more to it.
Gee, could it have anything to do with the high infant mortality and the high rate of death? If so, I already mentioned that in the video. Could it have something to do with lack of access to birth control and abortion? Are you gonna give me a clue, or just tell me to buy a book and move to a third world shithole?
And no, you cannot be naive enough to pretend that women will ever work 50/50 no matter what you do.
We're almost at a 50-50 now. There are only 12.4% more men working than women. For 2012, 70.1% of men worked. Others are retired, disabled, not seeking a job, or unemployed. And 57.7% of women work. Others are retired, disabled, not seeking a job, or unemployed. So male employment is only 12% higher, and male pay is 33% higher. That's for USA. In Sweden the workforce participation is 76.66 female, 82.18 male. That's a 5.52% difference, with a 15% wage gap, favoring males. In Iceland it's 82.6 male workforce participation, 82.62 female workforce participation. Women are the ones doing the 0.02% more work. I cannot find what I would call accurate wage gap info on Iceland. In other parts of the world, the wage gap is, and in each case favors males. Netherlands 17%, Sweden 15%, Ireland 14%, Hungary 13%, France 12.5%, Greece 12%, Denmark 11%, Poland 10%, New Zealand 10%, Belgium 9%. So again, this bold and powerful declaration of yours, that men and women will never work 50-50, you're looking at women technically holding more employment in Iceland than men, and Belgium with only a 9% pay gap. And remember, all of these countries are still to some degree fighting gender stereotypes and the traditionalist Christian-type patriarchal model. Still, all of these countries have some old traditionalist men shaking their fists shouting "Get back in the kitchen, woman, and make your man a sandwich." So your proclamation that it will never be 50-50, no matter what, ever, is a pretty unlikely scenario. Let me continue dissecting your bullshit.
And yet your inane stupidity of taxation for betterment of society continues.
Right, because taxes have never been used to benefit a society. They were apparently invented to rob people, just because. No rhyme or reason, just because.
And who the fuck cares what regulations you advocate?
Apparently you do, because you're all up on this shit.
And create regulations that drive industries out of the first world.
What good is having industries in the first world if we have to live like we are in the third world in order to incentivize them to stay? Seems a bit self-defeating. Furthermore, You don't think it's strange that it's the richest nations that have the highest corporate regulations, and the poorest nations that have the least amount of corporate regulations? Have you ever caught on to that and the deeper underlying reason for it all? We have laws like you can't own people as slaves anymore. If an employee cuts their hand off while working for you, you can't just fire them. You have to compensate them. You have to have fire exits, and you can't use asbestos. And if you serve food, you have to do it under hygienic conditions. And if you market drugs for the treatment and diagnosis of illness, it actually has to undergo trials. You can't just put some vitamin powders in there and call it a cancer cure, and expect actual licensed doctors to hand it to patients. I know, our pesky first world regulations, keeping people alive and healthy. If only we allowed corporations to work little children to death like they do in third world countries, our standard of living would skyrocket. And who knows, one day, us unfortunate Americans can live as good as those people in third world countries whose corrupt government, bought off by the corporations, allow their citizens to be exploited and worked to death in inhumane conditions. If only we could knock these regulations off and catch up to them. Last year, in Bangladesh, there was an 8-story sweatshop that collapsed, killing 1,100 people. It collapsed because it was a condemned building that Abercrombie and Fitch had them working in. Old women and little children working 12-hour days for a humiliating wage, while breathing asbestos, cutting off their hands in machinery, losing their eyes from projectiles coming out of machinery, losing their hearing from loud machinery. That's how Big Corp likes it. Nice and cheap, no regulations. And you think we should aspire to be like them? Did you ever stop to think that if we allowed the corporations to exploit Americans like they do the Nigerians, we'd be living like the Nigerians pretty damn quick? Your fear that all the corporations will pack up and do business in third world countries, well, there is a lot of truth in that. Corporations go to the most exploitable area, and then try to sell to those who are the least exploitable, the wealthiest nations. I have had ideas in the past, on how we can reduce outsourcing. However, a friend of mine, who is an economist, assured me my plans wouldn't work. The details are far too complicated for me to understand. Again, there is a huge difference between talking to opinionated people who think they know everything, versus genuine intellectuals who do it for a living. And so I had to drop my ideas to end corporate exploitation. Again, I am no economist, and I seriously doubt you are either, but nonetheless, you are right, too many regulations will encourage corporations to start packing up and going to third world countries. My general, overall take on this is, if we have to lower our first world standard of living, to encourage corporations to stick around to exploit us with jobs, then what is even the sense in having a good economy? Why live in a first world nation if the corporations make our lives feel like we are a third world nation? There has to be some kind of sane balance. Again, I understand that just writing regulations on any given whim is dangerous, but let's not go in the other direction and believe all regulations are evil government interfering with the holy and righteous God-given Ayn Rand free market. And perhaps my idea to have better parental leave is a bad regulatory proposal on a whim. If so, argue that, on its merit alone. But look at the way you are practically frothing at the mouth over regulations, using words like regulation retards and saying people like me are the problem and so on. When you do this, you are not making the argument that my one idea is a bad idea. You are divulging your zealous, fanatical, and unreasonable viewpoint that corporations are to have free rein to do as they please, and any effort to control them is an act of evil. Next you say,
It is so lovely to see the megacorporations writing the regulations that you regulatory retards support.
So the mega-corporations, that according to you are getting up and leaving the first world, are scripting regulations that I support? If they're scripting the regulations, then why are they the ones packing up and leaving the first world? Doesn't seem to make a whole lot of sense. And the only regulations I support are the ones that force corporations to treat employees as people, and not as livestock. And if mega-corporations are the ones scripting those regulations, then why the fuck are they sending factories over to the third world? Up until this video, I only suggested that if population reduction became a problem, which is what the tradcans are bitching about, not me, incentivizing reproduction by having corporations pay higher, longer, gender-neutral, parental leave, would be a nifty idea, and I have yet to see any corporation of any size push for this. So what in the name of all that is sane and rational are you talking about?
Well, as much as I understand libertarians, taxes are evil, because it's just glorified stealing. And government assistance is powered by taxes, therefore it is evil for the sake of being evil.
I don't know if you are agreeing with that position, or whether you are just mentioning that is your observation of the libertarian position, but this is one of those all too common libertarian delusions. The whole notion they shouldn't have to pay taxes, that taxes are theft, This is stupid. It's anarchist feel-good delusion akin to the communist hippies dancing around saying, money shouldn't exist, man. Like everyone should just be equal, man. The libertarian that doesn't think he should pay taxes enjoys driving on a road paid for by taxes. He enjoys the protection of a military paid for by taxes. After all, weapons don't grow on trees. They are built with money. And where is this money going to come from if not for taxes? Maybe the hippy-dippy viewpoint here is, well, war is bad, man. Like if we just totally stop funding the military. Like, there won't be any war, man. Make love not war, man. Maybe that's what's going on in their heads. If you live in a society, aka a collective, you have to give up some individualism to be a part of that society. That's just an unavoidable fact of reality. If you don't like that, go live way out in the woods, build yourself a little tent, and survive off the land. And if you break your leg, get bit by a snake, catch pneumonia, too fucking bad, you're on your own. That's what pure individualism looks like. No firefighters, no doctors, no laws, no police force, no court system, no military to defend you. That's absolute individualism, that's anarchy, and it doesn't work. Again, if you live in a society, you have to part with some individualism in order to do that. Everyone does. And when you say words like that, they have a knee-jerk response to say that's collectivist thought. Man, that's commie talk. Man, that's Marxian philosophy. Man, I swear, I don't know who's more out of their minds. The drug-intoxicated hippie claiming we should totally throw away our weapons, and do without money so we can all be equals, or the guy who wants to live in a society, talk about how a society needs to function, and then somehow think he shouldn't have to pay taxes to make that society function. Expecting a society to function without taxes is like expecting a car to run without fuel.
Nobody pays taxes, we surrender our money. There's a difference.
Christ almighty, this is what I am talking about. Of course paying taxes should be voluntary. I'm sure that'd work out real good. People only paying money when they feel like paying money. In fact, why don't we apply that to everything? You only pay your employees when you feel like it. You only pay for the food you ate when you're in the mood to do so. If taxes were voluntary, no one would pay them. Just like if Walmart decided to let you volunteer to pay for things, or take them for free, because taking money out of your pocket is like totally authoritarian coercive police state brutality. Man, the libertarian idea that taxes should be voluntary, is right up there with hippie communism that believes everything should just like totally be free. You know, at least when the hippies said this shit, they were wasted on mind-altering drugs. What fucking excuse does the modern libertarian have?
You really don't understand the libertarian position. Government is evil because, by definition, it must exist by claiming and using a monopoly of force on people. This is in violation of the non-aggression principle. If you need to look that up, please do so. I would bet you agree with the non-aggression principle except when it comes to government. Government action, by using force and/or coercion, cannot be good because it is based on immoral violence. Two wrongs don't make a right, so to speak. If you disagree with these ideas, that's fine. But please stop misrepresenting these ideas by pretending it's government bad, or worse yet, fuck the poor. Libertarians are also against corporations. Corporations are nothing but a creation ex nihilo by government for the sole purpose of eliminating liability of the owners when things go south. A corporation thus can privatize its profits and socialize its losses, while at the same time immorally influencing the very government that created it and is supposed to regulate it. Government is evil because, by definition, it must exist by claiming and using a monopoly of force on people.
This is fundamental, not evil. Government needs to have authority. If it doesn't, it ceases to be a government. Authority is not evil, unless you're a 5-year-old child that thinks mom and dad are being evil for not letting you eat all the candy you want, or for forcing you to wash your hands before eating.
This is in violation of the non-aggression principle. If you need to look that up, please do so.
I actually never heard of this, or maybe I have, and just never paid attention. I looked it up, and it is exactly what I thought it was, and nothing more. I was expecting more than a lame-ass overly worded explanation of the golden rule. Actually, the golden rule makes infinitely more sense than this retarded shit. I seen a libertarian cartoon on YouTube when googling non-aggression principle, and at first I thought it was mocking libertarians. Nope, it's actually pro-libertarian. Holy fucking Jesus. It reminded me of when South Park made fun of Mormonism, and flashed on the screen, "This is really what Mormons think." And when they made fun of Scientology and flashed the words, "This is really what Scientology believes," I expected the words, "This is really what libertarians believe," to start flashing across the screen. I am leaving a link to it.
I would bet you agree with the non-aggression principle except when it comes to government.
No, I wouldn't. at least not past the age of 5, when I realized sometimes mommy and daddy need to tell you no, need to spank your ass, need to send you to your room, not because they are big ol' meanie heads, but because authority and thus coercion is an essential part of life. Let's say your kid is trying to stick its finger in a light socket. What do you as a libertarian do? If you ask it nicely and it doesn't listen, and it wants to play with the light socket, so that it can light up just like a light bulb, what do? You can't put your hands on the kid. That would violate the non-aggression principle. You can't threaten in any way, shape or form. That too would be a violation. So it would then be moral to let your kid stick its finger in the light socket and die of electrocution? That's what morality looks like to you. Another scenario. According to the non-aggression principle, you can let your kid starve to death. Yeah, if you got a 4-year-old, and would rather buy beer for yourself rather than feed your kid, that is perfectly moral. It only becomes immoral if you prevent your kid from obtaining food. And if some stranger wants to feed your kid for you, and steps onto your property without asking, you can shoot him? Because his trespassing violated you, thus it was self-defense. And what about pollution? Is a person free to pollute the air, and make people sick? After all, his pollution is coming off of his property. If the air should drift onto your property, oh well, no one owns the air, so individuals and corporations are allowed to pollute, even when that pollution is so toxic, and the rivers are deadly, that the neighborhood has a health crisis as a result. And that's just fine, natural law and shit. If however, you don't agree that a corporation or individual can pollute in ways that directly make people ill, and you do see this as an act of aggression, justifying aggression in return, then I'd like you to consider that your arguments right here today are so stupid they are causing me stress, and that stress is bad for my heart, bad for my health in general, and is causing me a headache, and I interpret that as an act of aggression, and thus according to your libertarian principles, I am justified to use force against you. So under libertarian religious creed of non-aggression principle, we either allow our neighbors to dump highly toxic waste on their front lawn, which will by air and by rain, wash over onto your property and into your lungs, poisoning your dog and making your kids sick, and we must also allow him to cook up some anthrax on his own property and let it fly through the air causing thousands of deaths. Or on the flip side, we call any act that in any way directly or indirectly, intentionally or unintentionally, is harmful to others, an act of aggression justifying aggression in return, and thus I can shoot you for irritating me into having a headache. What about fraud? The non-aggression principle only advocates the use of force to counter force. If I sell you a product for a hefty price, knowing that the product is a counterfeit or doesn't function, and take your money, and you later discover it is broken or counterfeit, how will you get your money back? You can't take it by force. That would violate the non-aggression principle. Can't have authority figures such as big guff's police force take it from me. That would violate the non-aggression principle. The non-aggression principle is stupid, rigid, inflexible, and subject to frivolous interpretation, like a religious creed, and libertarians apparently use this in the same way a religious man would use the 10 Commandments or Sharia law. And many libertarians believe that the non-aggression principle is the foundation on which all libertarianism is based, and that the answer to all questions for a libertarian is to draw the logical moral conclusion from the non-aggression principle. This just reeks of the religious fundamentalists that have an opinion on everything, and rather than using a flexible rational argument from reason, thump the Bible as their justification for everything they believe. Well sir, I am an atheist, skeptic, and a bit of a nihilist, so I don't believe in objective morality.
Government action, by using force and or coercion, cannot be good because it is based on immoral violence. Two wrongs don't make a right, so to speak.
Two wrongs can make a right. It is the basis of our judicial system, and the government does need to use force and coercion or it is useless. Government requires authority and able to govern, and if you don't believe in government, then sure, we can go back to the days of just walking around bopping each other on the head with a club and taking each other's shit, like the prehistoric man before the development of society. You believe government's use of force is immoral? Again, where are you drawing this morality from? If a person is being beaten or raped, the police, aka government, has no moral right to use force to save that person. If you want to try to justify it by saying that the person doing the raping or beating is violating the non-aggression principle, then to that I will remind you two wrongs don't make a right, as you said, and I will remind you that people are innocent until proven guilty by trial, and thus government has no right to violate the physical autonomy of an innocent man. There, two reasons why neither you or the cops can do anything to save this person. Now in the real world of common sense, a million miles away from libertarianism, if a person is being physically attacked, the government has the right to step in, stop the attack by force or coercion, and then force that person to stand trial, and then execute a fit punishment, because that's how shit works in the real world, the functioning world. Same with stealing. If I just up and take something, that is not a physical aggression. Thus neither you nor police can touch me or stop me. You really believe shit like the government having the authority to do the job that we the people assigned them to do, is an act of immorality, even when it could save lives?
If you disagree with these ideas, that's fine. But please stop misrepresenting these ideas by pretending it's government bad, or worse yet, fuck the poor.
Why should I stop believing that the libertarian viewpoint of government bad is correct? You've basically laid out an argument that any force government uses is bad, thus government is bad. You even started off by saying, in your exact words, government is evil because, by definition, it must exist by claiming and using a monopoly of force on people. In your own words you just got through saying government is evil, bad, same thing. Oh, but I am misunderstanding libertarianism. Good grief. I am going to alter the grammar on this next bit, because I think you have a couple of typos.
Libertarians are also against corporations. Corporations are nothing but a creation ex nihilo by government for the sole purpose of eliminating liability of the owners when things go south. A corporation thus can privatize its profits and socialize its losses, while at the same time immorally influencing the very government that created it and is supposed to regulate it.
Okay, that's not libertarianism as I know it. That's communism as I know it. You said libertarians are against corporations, though apparently go apeshit when anyone wants to tax them. You say corporations are creations by the government. Well then, stop telling government to get out of its own business. Government can tax itself as much as it wants. Government can regulate itself as much as it wants. If a corporation is the creation of the government, like a song is the creation of a musician, like a child is the creation of its parents, then the creator has rights and dominion over it. Thus quit telling government to stop regulating its own creation. You proclaim that government has created corporations to evade the responsibility. Well, then what do you call the libertarian that wants to get government out of corporations' business? How can the government take responsibility when the libertarians insist that government back away from corp and let it do its thing like a spoiled child? It's a bit like telling a parent they need to take responsibility for their kid, all the while telling the parent they are not to have authority over its kid. And again, it ultimately sounds a little commie, like corporations are bad. The sales and exchanging of goods is government's responsibility. That, sir, is the communist position. You, sir, are all mixed up. Everything you say is contrived, convoluted, contradictory and nonsensical, and I do believe you represent libertarians well. Irrational fear of authority, fluffy-headed idealism with no realistic means of implementation, the desire to have all the rights of pure individualism while wanting to keep the benefits of being in a collective, and lacking the basic understanding of the simplest concepts that are self-evident to a person that has reached their teenage years.
Go apeshit about taxophobia or shut the fuck up. Yeah, there are people who disagree. Deal with it. There's more to life than social relations. You start going into economy, propose economic solutions and get negative responses from people that care about this topic and have incompatible solutions themselves. What a shocker. Anyway, obviously not speaking for every person labeled libertarian, this outlook is based on basic principles, so it will be dogmatic for pragmatic types that just want to turn a dial here and over there. The entire idea is that you just don't turn a dial reactively, when turning it is violating basic principles. Economy is widely complex. Playing with programs that are backed by violent force taxes are not voluntary is very likely to cause more harm than good, so just don't do it. Even if you feel like this pet program of mine, it could be so good. Even then, just know, you can't. You could have voluntary solutions for the same thing. Like with these equal maternity/paternity leaves, they could be implemented by consent at a marriage contract. Both future parents agree to split the time exactly 50/50, and publish it, so in any work negotiations, if employer cares about it, he can check it. There's a safety valve in all voluntary relations. You can opt in or out. If it happens that this has some unexpected unwanted effects, people are not forced to keep obeying it. It went somehow badly for our neighbors, so we're erasing this clause from contract. I don't want it with second baby, etc. Now, it is pretty obvious that people won't start doing things this way tomorrow, because it is customary in Western civilization to start bitching, then go to lobbying, then go to writing a law, if a large-scale problem arises. It is unheard of to just go and start solving it from your end. So, in our current system, I don't mind very much these shenanigans with maternity/paternity leave, but I do consider it a problem that somebody reserves the power to influence social relations or economic relations for some reason of his, even if it's majority opinion, with coercion. After all, you gotta go shut down these that won't comply. If it was a suggestion, it wouldn't be a law.
You talk about there being more to life than social relations. and bring up economy. Am I to assume you support the well-being of the free market over the well-being of the people? I mean, you do understand that economy is a support system for life. Life is not a support system for economy. You talk about economy is widely complex. Well, so is life, and since economy is a part of life, it is ultimately less complex than life itself. Economy is a part of society. Society is not a part of economy. Thus society is more complex than economics. You talk about the dangers of just turning dials on the economy. Do you realize that this applies to all aspects of life? Even a social policy can have disastrous consequences. You then bitch that these policies being implemented by force. Again, this crazy obsession with government's use of force. I guess I am going to have to spell it out for everyone that doesn't understand the basic premise of human society, a premise I thought we knew by middle school. If you exist all alone, you are an individual. The moment a bunch of individuals get together in close proximity, they are a collective of individuals, ergo a collective. This collective is known as a society. A society has to have rules. You either abide by the rules or you leave the group, aka, the society. Rules have to be enforced by someone. This someone is called the government. Government cannot enforce these rules without having authority. The authority given to the government is given to them voluntarily by the group, the collective, the society. Therefore government has all moral right, all moral authority, to have authority over the subjects. If you do not agree to this, please leave the society. If you do not consent to this, let me try this again. By existing within the society, you are agreeing to abide by society's rules, and are consenting that government has the right to step in and use force and coercion to make sure that you are obeying these rules. Thus you have consented to give them authority over you. If you do not consent to this, you are not permitted in this society. This is not coercive, you are volunteering this. You are entering into this agreement. You can argue that you never consented to be born, therefore had no choice but to be a part of this society. Oh well, take it up with your mommy. You can argue that you got nowhere else to go. Oh well, that's your own problem. You talk about some marital contract to split child raising 50-50 or something. I think you missed the point of my proposal. The issue is, tradcans are screaming that we need more babies, and if we don't keep them dear women folk pregnant, barefoot, in the kitchen, we all gonna die. I explained the lack of child output is less the result of women leaving the kitchen, and more a matter of being economically unsound. Not many people want kids considering the massive financial burden and the penalty exacted by corporations, and by the lack of child rearing time versus career time. The reason for the lowered output is economic. We got 7 billion people. I don't see the problem, but if it is a problem, one way of increasing the output of children would be to create more parental leave for both sexes, and that idea is met with oh god no. My taxes, oh the sanctity of free market. Look, either your taxes, or lowered baby output, take your pick, but quit manufacturing excuses to exist as a regressive conservative traditionalist terrified of change. A statement by Thumbscrews is, when I saw the title of this video I was really hoping you would address your comments about evolutionary psychology. I already commented on evolutionary psychology. It's bullshit. It is not a legit science. All psychology, evolutionary or otherwise, is bullshit, or at least it is bullshit the moment we call these behaviors factual. It becomes at best, a pseudoscience when we call it science. At worst, it is a religion, as it serves the primary purpose of a religion. 1. To generate revenue for the industry. 2. To establish itself as a moral, behavioral authority. The church says you are sinful and need to be saved. The psychologists say you are diseased and need to be treated. The churches say we are telling you, as the authority on moral hygiene, what is appropriate behavior and thought, and what is sinful behavior and thought. The psychologists say we are telling you, as the authority on mental hygiene, what is appropriate behavior and thought, and what is diseased or unhealthy behavior and thought. It is also, as a Friedrich Nietzsche warned, an effort to derive morals from science now that God is dead. Psychology, as a scientific practice, is bullshit. Thus evolutionary psychology is also bullshit. One of the first criticisms of evolutionary psychology is that theories are established by biological evolution, without the behavior in question being proven to be genetic to begin with. I constantly hear, oh but psychology is real because their diseases have neurological proof. Bullshit. If bipolar was neurologically provable, then a psychologist shouldn't be tackling this problem with a 10-foot pole, and most certainly should never be allowed to diagnose bipolar. That's a job for a neurologist. And yet, ironically, the neurologist has no authority to diagnose bipolar, but a psychologist can diagnose your physical brain disease. If, As I so commonly hear, bipolar and schizophrenia and depression, they have been scientifically proven by neurologists to be physical brain disorders in the same way that tumors are real physical brain disorders. Well then, can a psychologist diagnose you as having a brain tumor? No. So why do they auto-magically get the legal right to diagnose other physical brain diseases? I could write 100 pages on the bullshit of the psychology industry, the pharmaceutical industry, and neuroscience, and how all three of these groups work hand in hand to maximize revenue based on the bullshit pretense of mental disease being as physically real as cancer. I could, but I won't, not now. Oh, and remember when being gay was a disease? Not anymore. Psychologists voted it out of the book. It was an instant cure. Hey, why not just cure AIDS by voting it off the medical books? Notice gender identity disorder is on the books. Well, the transgender community doesn't like that, so there's another very real physical disease about to be voted out of existence. Psych, it's more like a philosophical approach to understanding something, and is, in the end, speculation. I use psych speculation all the time. I am at no point in time claiming it to be scientific reality.
I am Scottish, and I'm completely against independence. I love Great Britain, and I love being blessed with the protection of the British Armed Forces.
Then you, sir, are no Scotsman, since a Scotsman by definition is in favour of independence from Britain. No true Scotsman is against independence. Yay, I finally did it. I committed the no true Scotsman fallacy.
Laughing out loud. Well, I told you I was away from Twitter. I wasn't upset about anything, I was spending time away from the computer. Anyway. Did you actually want me to assist Sale in some way? We're not on good terms anymore. She actually called me crazy, and not the good kind. Yeah, she did, that woman who domesticated a wild mouse and goes on and on about her boring rodent stories that no one gives a rat's ass about. She called me crazy. I think the hypocrisy is obvious, laughing out loud. P.S. You need to speed up the pace, make it sound like a chipmunk, like that Academy Migto imbecile. Or maybe change your voice. Use a British accent so your Migto philosophies sound credible for a change.
My voice is British. Do you just not know what an English accent sounds like? So is Goodfellas' accent, since Scotland is a part of Britain, much to the dismay of many true Scotsmen. I'll be honest, I thought the bloke was Welsh. I had a Welsh friend, the bloody tosser that he was, and he sounds so much like Goodfella. But now that I really stop and think about it, I think it's the sound pattern of the voice that is similar, not the actual accent. But none of that is important. What is important, is that Sale Palani called you legit crazy. Good God, woman, I've been calling you batshit bonkers for about a year now. In fact, you and all your feminist friends are straight up loony little man haters. But I have to know, what did you say or do to make her call you crazy? The reason I just got to know is, you feminists, specifically of the anti-MRA variety, you are the craziest people on earth. Slightly more so than the libertarians who think taxes should be picked from the trees, and not from the pockets of the citizens they serve. Extremely boring insinuates that men are the advantaged ones in divorce court, and women never lie about rape, like it's totally a myth and stuff, and yet you and the others, no one calls her insane for this. Sale Palani thinks men drink alcohol to build up the courage to rape, thus men should be prohibited from drinking. No one calls this crazy. Cloverfield burns Bic razors to protest shaving. In spite of shaving, she smears makeup all over her face to protest makeup. Even though in other videos she wears makeup, none of you calls this crazy. Femitheist Divine claims she is the head of a global initiative to reduce the male population of Earth to between 1 and 10%, and to have an International Castration Day, as a secondary solution. None of you suspect any mental illness. Lacey Green says that men have more sexual power than women in our society, and no one calls her crazy. Esselt Bossusto, who said on a post on Sale's channel, that she hopes I choke on my breakfast, and that she wants to see MRAs painfully murdered, impaled Vlad Tepes style, and no one thinks there may be some serious psychiatric problems going on there. But good God, you said something and it got you branded as crazy. Oh, for the love of Darwin, I have to know what it was you said that got you branded as crazy. I'm thinking maybe it's one of those reverse situations, like, you actually said something sane and reasonable, like maybe, sometimes men aren't the cause of our problems, and they just swarmed on you calling you full-blown nuts. Because in Insano land, which is where you people come from, maybe sanity looks like insanity from their point of view. Either way, I just have to know.
RBK, your theoretical/hypothetical/ as yet unrealized offer of archiving and help to start a new channel for Palani does seem somewhat overly generous, considering that, if I'm not mistaken, she was chiefly responsible for getting your original channel taken down. I remember the response video you did, can't remember the title, featuring a chubby teenage girl who was saying some nasty things about boys/men and why she hates boys/men, and I also remember watching a response to your video by some mangina, I think it was Hannibal Victor, but it could have been some other YouTube mangina, that Palani had commented on and who had also watched your video about that girl, and I distinctly remember her calling for people to start flagging your channel to get it taken down in her comment on that mangina video. Is there some reasoning behind your offer, or is this simply another male still doing stuff for women?
That video about the girl that Sale responded to wasn't the video that got flagged. I checked Hannibal's channel, and the only thing I could find, which is what you are probably remembering, is this. This was in response to AVFM and their alleged doxing of a 7-year-old girl. This was before I made my video, and it is my understanding that the father of the girl put her name on his blog, and that was what was considered doxing. I really don't know. We all know Palani exaggerates shit to the point where you can't believe a word she says. I mean, if you tell her you don't like her sweater, you are attacking her. If a Paul Elam says, "Hello Karen Strawn," on a podcast, Palani would probably make a video saying Elam is now doxing girl rights what? Because she's a sensationalist hysterical cuke like that. All the anti-MRAs are. One guy says I hope you get raped on that girl's channel, and they all scream oh my god rape threats, and then Esselt posts I hope he chokes on his breakfast and I want to see them get slain Vlad Tepes style. No one utters a peep about this being a death threat, but the words, I hope, equals rape threat, but, I hope, doesn't equal death threat, because that's a part of their collective mental illness. They tear down AVFM posters, that's fine. You let some guys from AVFM mark on a feminist rape propaganda poster and they scream they're defacing property. You let AVFM catch feminists tearing down their posters, follow them with a camera asking why did you tear down our posters? And these anti-MRAs report these poor innocent women were being stalked, harassed, and intimidated by AVFM. Because that's the mind of a narcissist, the mentality of bigotry. It's righteous when they do it, but wrong when we do it, because in the mind of the narcissist, or the sociopath, they are entitled to do wrong, and thus their wrong is right, and us doing it is wrong. However, I don't think Palani should have even been calling to get some folks together and shut that fucking site down. That is indeed censorship, though it was cryptic enough to make you wonder what she was even talking about. Get together and take it down. You can't flag AVFM. They own their own site. I mean, I suppose you could write a ton of complaints to Elam and inform him that he's offensive and should remove his own site, but I doubt Elam would comply. Did she mean denial of service attack the site? I seriously doubt she was calling for serious illegal action. Did she mean report them to the police? If so, like if she actually believed AVFM was breaking a law, it would only take one phone call to the police, not us folks getting together. But whatever she meant, sure sounds pro-censorship. I didn't expect that from her. I guess I need to stop thinking feminists are people. I guess I give these people too much credit. However, if this was not the post you were remembering, and she was calling for the flagging of my videos, I'd like a link if you ever come across it. Oh, and this, is there some reasoning behind your offer, or is this simply another male still doing stuff for women? Oh you cheeky bastard you. I just believe in an honest exchange of ideas. I try to respect my intellectual opponents. As a rule of thumb, I obviously am at odds with Rocking Mr. E, but if his channel went down I would offer copies of his videos, just because.
Nice little straw man argument you had there about traditionalism in the end. Know by the fact that you never cite any examples from real life, just an made-up dystopia in order to discredit an idea. The real-life traditional families I see are nothing like you described. They have their problems like every other fucking family, but nothing like you described. Even if they were real, at least the man still has a child to love and cherish. And what is MGTOW in practice? Staying at home, never leaving mommy's house like the parasite housewife you hate so much. Oh the irony. A bunch of depressed misogynistic boys jerking off and playing video games all day, always on the internet, constantly whining and crying about feminists and women because you are a new late 30s and still a virgin? Never to accomplish anything with your short life besides pretending to be morally superior to everyone else in order to stoke your inflated ego. To be in genetic dead end forever while bashing the very social structure, traditionalism, that allowed you to exist in the first place. How is this any different from any fat and ugly feminist? And this MGTOW philosophy is somehow pro-male. Are you fucking serious? I couldn't think of a more Miss Anne Ricklice style philosophy if I fucking tried. See what I just did there? No arguments, just an made-up dystopia to use as an emotional attack.
Okay, your grammar is atrocious, and I normally don't pick on people's grammar, especially when I know English isn't their first language, but seriously that was bad. Now, about the fact I never cite examples from real life, well, the majority of women I have cam-sexed with over the years were bored housewives. I guess I am supposed to prove that somehow. I mentioned men working their asses off to pay off their student loan debt. Is there something hard to believe about that? Have you not actually looked into the amount of people in debt from their student loan? Have you not Googled the average age in which student loan is paid off? From the site Projection Student Debt, 7 in 10 college seniors, 71%, who graduated last year had student loan debt, with an average of $29,400 per borrower. From 2008 to 2012, debt at graduation, federal and private loans combined, increased an average of 6% each year. I then said wife at home alone with the kids at school all day, watching TV and talking on the phone. Is some part of what I said imaginary, or far-fetched? If you go off to work, and her role is to stay home and be a housewife, and your oldest kid, if you have any, is 5 years or older, then she would in fact be home alone while the kids are at school. And just what in the hell do you think they do when they are home alone if not talk on the phone and watch TV? I mean, what do you honest to God think they are doing in the time? I mean, I really want to know what you think they do all day while the husband is at work. I can understand you not believing they are having cyber sex with guys online, even though they are half the time, but I can understand you being skeptical of that. But you can't possibly think any of them are doing anything else besides on the phone and watching TV. What the fuck else do you think they're doing? As for the bit about them being depressed, taking antidepressants and getting fat and taking it out on the husband, I have never bothered to look up statistics to back that up, but I have seen it often. I know offhand, and the facts will support this. The majority of people with depression are female, and women who are married are more likely to suffer from depression than single women. But I suppose you may have a case for the depression bit being not the norm, but it ain't that damn rare, trust me. Then I mentioned her fighting and divorcing you. Is there something unbelievable about that? Are you going to deny there is a lot of fighting before a divorce? Are you going to tell me you never heard the famous statistical fact that 50% of marriages end in divorce? It's not a hard statistic to come by. And if you don't believe that the wife gets the kids and assets most of the time, what is even your objection to anything? Isn't bellyaching about no-fault divorce the hallmark of you traditionalists? And if you don't believe, by way of logic I have provided, that women get the kids and assets as a result of you being the provider and her being the dependent, go watch the documentary Divorce Corp. Aside from the bit about the depression and flirting with guys online, is there anything in my scenario that isn't commonplace and perfectly logical? Is any of it somehow by any stretch of the imagination far-fetched? Besides, you are in no position to demand facts from my anecdotal example. You're the man that tells me it's a fact that patriarchy is the best way to raise children, and then can't hand me statistics for this so-called proven fact, and then twist the definition of patriarchy to mean a father who is present, which you are the only person in the world calling that patriarchy or traditionalism. So you, sir, are in no position to ask for proof of my anecdotes. After all, I was painting a picture with anecdotes, not claiming something to be a fact. But really and truly, do I even need to be arguing you at all? You just proved that you are not pro-male. Listen to the shit you said about MGTOW, staying at home, never leaving mommy's house like the parasite housewife you hate so much. Gentlemen, am I the only one that gets the feeling, this guy isn't on our side? And how misandrous is it of you to mock and ridicule a male for living off someone, but not only overlooking it when women do it, but encourage and praise them for doing it? If you have a vagina, you get a free ride and all the respect in the world for taking that free ride. But if you have a penis, you get no free ride. You only get mockery, ridicule, shame. How are you anything resembling pro-male? You're as anti-male as the feminists. Your entire rant is a stereotypical feminist portrayal of our entire movement, which is hilarious, that they assume us to be living with our parents, and make fun of us for it, yet do not make fun of their fellow woman for being an underachiever, and then wonder why women don't earn as much as men. Gee, maybe if they were shamed and scolded for not having a high-paying job, they'd start getting higher-paid jobs. But nope, ban the word bossy instead, blame invisible glass ceilings. Then you say, a bunch of depressed misogynistic boys jerking off and playing video games all day, always on the internet, constantly whining and crying about feminists and women because you are in your late 30s and still a virgin, never to accomplish anything with your short life besides pretending to be morally superior to everyone else in order to stoke your inflated ego, to be an genetic dead end forever while bashing the very social structure, traditionalism, that allowed you to exist in the first place. You have no basis whatsoever to say that traditionalism is the reason they exist. Many of them could be born to a single-parent mother, or from a family where mom called all the shots and dad stayed home. There is nothing to justify the statement traditionalism brought us into this world. You say genetic dead end and it really makes me wonder what goes through your head. Like breeding is a magnificent accomplishment, even bacteria reproduce, it's not an accomplishment. If it's something you want, fine, but it's not a victory for the individual. Genetic dead end just sounds weird, like something a racist father would say to his daughter that gave birth to a biracial baby. She murdered the family bloodline, our family hit its genetic dead end, etc. Genetic dead end, it just sounds so stupid. Then you end by calling MGTOW misogynists. What did I tell everyone a long time ago? That you know the person you are talking to, no matter what they call themselves, is the enemy the moment they call their fellow man a misogynist. It's a dead giveaway. The thing that confuses me is this last bit. See what I just did there? No arguments, just an made-up dystopia to use as an emotional attack. Does that mean the above paragraph about MGTOW living with their mums and being misogynists, and so on, is some kind of hypothetical example of an argumentative technique, and not the thing you actually believe? I'd say offhand, you believe what you just wrote. It's in tune with Rocking Mystery's opinion of non-traditionalists, and it's in perfect tune with all-around tradcan mentality. This is also why I will never call a tradcan under any circumstances a brother, or an MRA. You are antithetical to the well-being of men. You glorify pussy, so long as pussy is barefoot and pregnant in the kitchen where the good Lord insists she be. You call your brothers, who fight for their equality, misogynists. You are a pussy-begging white knight who is shaming and scolding your fellow man. This is what I see all the time from the traditionalists. They don't care about men, they'll throw their fellow man under the bus. The hate and misandry we face isn't a problem. All that's important is that feminism be defeated so women will get back in the kitchen, and our traditional European Christian heritage can be preserved from the evil godless communists. You are not an MRA, you're a tradcan. Go join the conservative Republican Party with your real ideological brothers, and don't come back until you have learned to love your fellow man.
Censorship. I'm disappointed this topic came up. Libertarians. We just don't like laws. Too many laws on the books as it is, all enforced by threat of violence or being put in a cage because corrupt politicians are either A. trying to get votes or B. have been lobbied. Don't get me wrong, the majority aren't a big fan of big corporation just as they're not a fan of big government. However, we also don't like turning a blind eye to unjust laws because they affect a class we don't like. More laws equal bigger government, and in the US? Yeah, the government's already big enough. That being said, your maternity leave incentive to return to work in order to receive the pay was very interesting, and if I ever owned a company and the bullshit government we have now magically became smaller and more sensible, I'd imagine such a notion would be considered for policy. I like the incentive to come back to work instead of just dropping off and leaving the position open for a blank amount of time with the temp wondering when his replacement will return or simply adopt to be a stay-at-home mother. Throwing ideas like that up, while I do take with a grain of salt as you've said, you are not appearing before Congress but are also fun to entertain their validity and if they are viable minus a mandate.
The bit about not liking big corp either, well, I do genuinely believe many libertarians do not favor big corporation. However, libertarians have an unjustified fear of government, or better yet, an irrational fear of authority, to which they credit government as being the sole authority figure in their lives. This fear makes the libertarian easy to manipulate. If you know someone's worst fear, you can use that to manipulate and control them, and big corp does it all the time. The internet freedom we have now is based largely on net neutrality. The phone companies want to end that, but big gov keeps upholding our internet freedom. So the corporations know to go to the libertarians and prey on their fear of big government and their blind faith in free market idealism. Corporations know to use this to exploit the libertarians. This is why libertarianism, in theory, does not favor the corporations, but in practice, they are so controlled, so manipulated by their fear of big government, that the corporations have the libertarians eating out of their hand. So libertarians in practice stick up for big corp. You say, I like the incentive to come back to work instead of just dropping off and leaving the position open for blank amount of time with the temp wondering when his replacement will return or simply adopt to be a stay-at-home mother. I'm glad you picked up on that. A huge problem is that maternity is a liability for a corporation. I have heard it from employers so many times. They even go as far as to set up a small nursery so that the woman can come back to work and bring her baby, only to have the mother decide she's not coming back, and not even bother to tell them until last minute. This creates a reassurance that the mother will come back. If she got a year off, you know she's going to come back for a year to collect that double paycheck, or that time-and-a-half paycheck, and perhaps we can make this parental leave a corporate opt-in option. The government will cut a tax break to any company that agrees to this. That way the companies don't lose money with this policy. Everybody wins. Mother and father has time to bond with their children. If the mother takes a year off, and then comes back to work, and you know she will for that extra pay, and then the father takes his 1-year paternity leave to be with the kid, he can bond with the child, and that's the first 2 years of its life being raised by a biological parent. It gives each parent time to adjust to parenthood so that when they do come to work, they've had time to work out babysitters, they've had time to adjust to the stresses of parenthood. The child in its earliest years has had a time to bond with its parents and develop attachment. It gives the couple a much-needed break from work. Think about it, from the day you're 5, half of every day of your life is in school, college, work. You may get a week or 2 off per year, but you never get that long stretch of time to find yourself and relax until the age of retirement. This way you get a year off to live life. The corporations get their tax break so that it works out even financially, plus they have the security of knowing if they hire a woman of childbearing years, her having a baby will not hurt the company because she is almost guaranteed to come back, and hiring a man, who is in his prime years to be a father, will be no more or less risk. Thus there would be no gender discrimination in hiring and pay. It would help to even things out. Depending on how the tax break is written, this could actually end up helping small businesses if the break is for issuing the parental leave policy, not just paper parental leave. Then small companies who know they probably won't ever have to make good on their policy, will be given a tax break, and again, the entire thing being an option for the companies. It just works out for everybody, and as I said, it's flexible. Maybe a year is too long, maybe not long enough, maybe the pay should be 150% of your pay when you come back, maybe 200%. Or 250%. The idea is flexible, not a concrete bill as is, being pushed to Congress. But look at all the knee-jerk phobic-based panic attacks it sparks in libertarians, reactionaries afraid that any tinkering with the dials will destroy our economy and destroy us all. I forget who that guy was that said it, but I could almost hear the reactionary conservative in him saying you can't tinker with things, you can't just change dials even if it sounds good. Any change can kill us all. I'm afraid of change. I don't like change. Change doesn't feel right. We can't change. I'm afraid of change. You can't just up and play God and change things. You, psychological cynic, are an example of what libertarians should be. A libertarian who understands that change is a thing that has to happen, forever and always in a state of change. Nothing remains the same except for the certainty of change. It is not the change we must fear, but the way in which things change that we must be cautious about. But change is necessary and we must keep an open mind to the effects of change, and choose which changes will best suit us. Change is inevitable. This is why the conservative will always lose. The conservative mind is terrified of change in a world that will always change. The conservative mind fighting a losing battle against progress, a nightmare lived out every day of his life. I am certainly glad I do not have a conservative brain.
Dude, what you have to understand when it comes to taxes is that they're theft. You're literally telling people it's okay to steal, so long as it's done by the people you like and so long it is done for a purpose you like. So it's not at all weird to hear a proposal that involves it and think, why the hell do you think it's okay to take people's money and do whatever you want with it? Let me give you a concrete example here to make matters clear. You claim the government should spend money to pay for women's daycare expenditures. This is a normative statement. So you're treading in the territory of ethics here. But what are you saying, exactly? Well, that the population at large should be forced to pay for her daycare. And what is your justification for this? Apparently, an economic one. But economics is not ethics. Even if it would improve the economy, that tells you nothing about whether it should be done or not. Should people be forced, with government threats, to pay for your pet project? At the very least, you must answer that with an attempt at a moral argument in order to reasonably reject the libertarian objection. As a bonus, let's go through the economics of this. You claim you'll be creating jobs by taking money from people and spending on the daycare. This is a classical economic fallacy, the seen versus the unseen. Should people keep their money, they would spend it in other goods or services. So it turns out you create jobs in the daycare at the expense of jobs somewhere else, likely, more and more important jobs at that. It's kinda ironic you'd use this argument, actually, while deriding the Fed, because this is the exact same economic fallacy that government, through monetary stimulus in particular, uses to bamboozle the public.
This right here again. Are libertarians just 5 years old or something? Dude, what you have to understand when it comes to taxes, is that they're theft. No, it isn't. It really isn't. The quicker you learn this the better. Maybe you need an example. Here's one off the top of my head. Your wealth is not created independently, it is created with others. Your income is based on the society, the collective. You make money in the context of a complex functioning society that has allotted you safety and opportunity not available in a non-society. Society offers you the safety and insurances you need to create your wealth. Therefore you have a debt to that society. You must pay off your debts, right? This is in tune with the libertarian faith. Your commandments do comply with the notion that you have to pay off a debt, right? When you were doing that job and building that house for that guy, or talking to that contractor, or whatever your job was, notice how you weren't ambushed by an invading country wanting to kill you, take your shit, and rape your family. Well, this invasion didn't take place because of a force known as your military. Your military protects you, and they need money to build the planes, tanks, bombs, guns, and to pay for the soldiers who risk their lives to defend this land that allows you to do business on. I'm sorry, sir, but you have to pay for this privilege. Military, in USA, is most of all government spending. Military alone justifies the majority of your taxes. Again, that money you have, that you think you are entitled to, is only made because the military is protecting you, your property, and your materials, and the people you do business with, from foreign invaders, and you owe them. Next, that money you made wasn't stolen from you by a group of thugs, because you are protected by the police. The police need money. Cops don't work for free, no one does. They need weapons and vehicles and training. This is expensive, and keeps you safe to do your business, and keep the money you make. Therefore you are in debt to them. The guy you had a contract with, that paid you the money you feel you are tax exempt to keep. Why did he pay you the money? Because he lawfully owed it to you. But suppose he didn't pay, how would you take it? He's twice your size, and hangs out with a tough crowd. How would you get the money? Ah yes, the police force would be your muscle for you, to arrest him, and force him to stand trial. This costs money for that protection. That's why your cash was taxed. Remember all that driving you did to do your job over the years. How could you have driven if there were no roads? You have roads because taxes were paid. You need to pay for those roads that you used to do your business to make your money. And remember that fire that happened on your block? Notice it didn't spread and eventually burn down your house, destroying all your wealth. That was because of the fire department. They don't work for free. You owe them for that time, and you owe them for the future time that they come to your house. They are always there to make you, your property, and your clients safe. You owe them for this service, even if you haven't had to use them yet. They are there. There is a reason humans live in societies, rather than lone individuals. Strength in numbers. Your money is the product of functioning within the safety and opportunity afforded to you by this society, and those within the society that work to give you that safety and opportunities, are doing you a service, and you owe them compensation. That is your debt, and it is called taxes. If you do not wish to have these services provided to you, and thus shouldn't have to pay, the problem here is, the system cannot function by only checking in advance who is opted in and who has opted out. Thus all people are assumed and treated as an opt-in. If you want to opt out, then leave the society. And again, all money you have made thus far has been done within the safety and opportunities created by the society. Therefore you owe that society your taxes. You have not been robbed. The government did not steal from you. They merely collected the debt you owe them for the services they provide to you. You then bring up ethics and morals, but economics is not ethics, even if it would improve the economy. That tells you nothing about whether it should be done or not. Should people be forced, with government threats, to pay for your pet project? At the very least, you must answer that with an attempt at a moral argument in order to reasonably reject a libertarian objection. My argument against a libertarian objection is that I am an atheist, and will not adhere to foolish faith-driven bullshit that makes up the libertarian philosophy, taking the great complexities of life and oversimplifying it to clever sound bites and catchphrases, taking pure idealistic fictitious bullshit such as natural law and making it a religious-type dogma on which a political view should be founded is incredibly stupid. The fact that there are libertarians that say off-the-wall batshit crazy things like taxation is theft, and other libertarians do not instantly smack them in the head for their own good, is my evidence that libertarianism needs to be avoided like a theocracy. A libertarian objection is equal to a creationist's objection to evolution. Your argument that taxation is theft is so false that your objection is a false one. I have to answer with a moral one. What is morality? Some dumb shit someone made up. I am a nihilist and don't believe in objective morality. I have my own code of morality that is flexible enough to be workable. Perhaps a flexible morality is not morality. Does morality have to come from a god? Maybe my argument is, Jesus said so. Do I win? Is that a moral argument? What about the we can read? You pay your taxes to my pet project and the gods will reward you threefold. Is that a moral argument? And I just realized that was not technically the Wiccan read. The Wiccan read is harm none, do as ye will, but still, that coming back threefold, that's Wiccan. I don't know what a moral argument is. How about, you're already forced to pay for a million other people's pet projects whether you like it or not, so why shouldn't you pay for mine? Is that a moral argument? How about women have laws looking out for them? Why can't us men have laws that in some way benefit us? Wouldn't that be justice? Isn't justice moral? You said that assuming this plan of mine would help the economy, I need to justify it morally? Well, if it helps the economy, then it by proxy helps the society. That which helps a society is good, I suppose. Isn't helping a society a moral thing? Isn't helping people a moral thing? If your question is how is the government taking by force or the threat of force morally justified, then as I explained, all wealth you acquire is based on the safety and opportunity provided to you by the society. You are in debt to that society for this safety and these opportunities, and government has a right to collect the debt you owe them. This is agreed upon by the society that erected government to be the authority figure on behalf of the common man. Thus it is the wish of that society, and you by your participation in this society are agreeing to be bound to the rules of that society. Therefore you have in advance given government authority to use force when you do not comply. If you do not agree to the terms of service of this society, please click cancel and leave this society. You have a moral obligation to obey the rules of the society you take part in. Is that a moral argument? Again, what is this bullshit concept of morality? Seems like an excuse for people to justify their opinions and feelings and use of force. Gays can't get married? God wouldn't approve equals morality. This virgin must be sacrificed to the gods, or the gods will become angry and kill us all. The needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few equals morality. Words can upset me. This upsetness causes stress and thus health problems. Therefore you are forbidden to speak words I disapprove of because it will do me physical harm. No hate speech on campus equals morality. Is a moral argument an emotional argument? Is this my cue to write a tear-jerking scene about a single parent that was not afforded daycare, and thus didn't get a job, and her and the baby starved? They died because of heartlessness. Oh, if only the society she was a part of had a heart. Her and her beautiful baby would be alive. To have spared their lives would have been the moral choice. Oh the humanity, oh the humanity. Won't someone think of the children? Was that a moral argument? How about I just stick with my original argument that a single parent sacrificing their career for parenthood will take more of the taxpayers' money than the single parent that had free daycare and was able to climb the corporate ladder, thereby eventually paying many times over the amount of taxes that were used to fund her daycare, thus alleviated the tax burden to others in the long run. Oh, that's right. You need a moral argument. Okay, I got it. By her paying more taxes into the system than taking out, she is reducing the amount of money government is stealing from you, therefore the government steals less. Isn't lowering the amount of theft a moral thing? Morality. Laughing out loud. You people crack me up with your silly notions.
Illegal immigrants are actually more good for the economy than not, since corporations still need to pay them a higher wage than they do for workers in third world countries, and they pay taxes and consume U.S. goods, generating millions of dollars in revenue.
Nothing could be further from the truth. We've all heard the lies. Illegal Mexicans only take jobs Americans don't want. Really? How many of you here really believe that? How many of you really believe there are no Americans right now willing to take a job at Home Depot? How many of you think there are no Americans willing to take a factory or warehouse job for minimum wage? You mean to tell me with all this unemployment, our economic recession, there are just no Americans looking for minimum wage jobs? Remember this little catchphrase, they're only taking the lower class jobs. Oh, so they're only hurting the poor people. Well golly then, that's not a problem. Fuck the poor people. Us upper middle class people aren't getting hurt by it. Only the poor people. Snotty upper middle class white Americans are just fine. It's only the lower class black people, trying to get a job and work their way out of the ghetto, who are being hurt. Yeah, fuck the poor. Remember this one. Oh, the illegal immigration problem isn't really a problem. There's hardly any of them here. You're panicking over nothing because you're a racist. They just want to be a part of America. Today we are hearing, there's nothing that can be done about it now. There are too many of them, just going to have to start issuing large amounts of them citizenship. Yeah, a long time ago the rhetoric was it's not that big of a deal. Today it's too big of a deal to fix, so might as well not try. And then there's America is a nation of immigrants. Yeah, legal ones. Even during the Irish potato famine, when the Irish flooded into America, creating culture shock and some gang violence, at least they were actually here legally, and paying taxes. Ain't no goddamn Irishman swimming across the ocean and sneaking into America, and if any Irishman did swim the ocean to sneak in, okay, grant that fucker citizenship and put him in the Olympics. illegal immigration is responsible for a ton of violent crime, the cost of harm done to American citizens from these illegal street gangs, the cost to the police to try, and fail, to stop them is costing taxpayers. There are areas in Arizona that cops simply refuse to go to. They would require military assistance just to try and push back the gangs. Illegal aliens make up 25% of the federal prison population. Per year, illegal aliens cost the taxpayers $113 billion. Again, that's $113 billion per year. That works out to $1,117 worth of taxes per head of household. That means, on average, you, the average working man, head of household, are paying $1,117 worth of taxes per year to accommodate and incarcerate illegal aliens. And when I say incarcerate, I am not referring to locking them up for being unlawfully in this country. I am referring to arresting them for things like murder, burglary, carjacking, drug dealing, etc. In Los Angeles, 95% of all outstanding warrants for homicide is issued for illegal aliens. If there was ever a situation to get up and scream the also famous taxes, not my fucking taxes, I think now would be a good time. This may be one of the few times that would be called for. The Democratic left, and its cultural Marxism, is so anti-white they support illegal Mexican immigration because they see it as a way of hurting, reducing, threatening, the white population. Apparently they don't care that it actually hurts black people more than whites. Forget about the fact that Mexican Americans with perfectly legal citizenship bear the brunt of racial tensions from whites and blacks caused by the invading Mexican gangs. The right-wing corporate dicksuckers say it's good for the economy, which translates to, it gives the corporations good cheap exploitable labor. As always, both left-wing and right-wing working in perfect harmony to fuck over the best interest of the nation. Offhand, I find it interesting that the transnational gang Mara Salvatrucha, MS-13, originating from El Salvador, consisting of mostly illegal immigrants, financially backed by the Mexican drug cartel, has caused far more murder and crime to America than the Taliban. Yet we've spent something like $1 trillion fighting over in the Middle East. If the terrorist attack on the World Trade Center was justification to invade Iraq, why isn't there significantly more American deaths attributed to attacks by MS-13 considered justification for the US military invasion of Mexico and El Salvador? Drugs, human trafficking, child prostitution rings, killing more people in the US alone than those who died on 9/11. They may not be as powerful of a force as the Taliban is in Afghanistan, but they have caused the US more damage. So why aren't we dealing with these terrorists? Not enough oil? Maybe they're not a threat to Israel. Maybe they don't irk the feminists with a patriarchal ideology. Maybe Christian America doesn't hate them as much as Islamic groups. Fuck if I know. But to recap, your insistence that illegal immigration helps the economy. No, just no, it doesn't. The crime, the American job opportunities lost. The lack of paying income tax, the fact they bleed the welfare system dry, it hurts America economically and lowers the standard of living by increasing crime.
At 7:04 is that rocking Mr. Retard? I could swear that I keep seeing him on almost every MRA channel under a different name. All he ever talks about is nuclear family, conservative traditionalism and all that shit.
No, I am pretty sure they are different people, but they all come from the same place psychologically. They all have the same personality type, and adhere to the same political concept, fear of change, nostalgia for the past, opposes Marxism, primarily because communism is godless, and that's why it is the enemy of the religious right, nuclear family, pro-life, against birth control, the strong belief in objective morality, religious faith in the free market, severe distrust of authority, primarily the government, rooted in the belief only God can be an infallible authority, thus all non-God-based authority is wicked, extreme individualism, praise of John Locke and Ayn Rand, the importance of natural law, a fictitious political philosophy, constant appeals to nature, natural, they use science says in place of God says, all the while using discredited scientific theory or a half-ass understanding of science. Even for the atheist conservative, he uses arguments which have been logically constructed by the religious right, to justify their religion. The distrust in government, when not directly related to psychological problems, stems from the fact that government is godless. These religious zealots who want to get government out of our lives are actually skipping the second half of that slogan. The real reason for it is, and put God in our lives. The atheist that has a strong powerful fear of government, in many cases, feels that he is not in control of his life, and therefore something with authority is the cause, and blames government. He will then use arguments against government, maybe not even knowing they were logical arguments originally constructed for the emotional reason of defending theism. Eventually it all runs together, an entire movement geared towards staving off change. returning us to simpler, though mostly imaginary, times, and getting government out of our lives. The movement eventually becomes something of a pseudo-religion, and then they all drink the same Kool-Aid and spout the same catchphrases, trapped in the right-wing box of thought, so they all sound like carbon copies of one another. And again, the mentality to jab your finger at the Bible to validate your feelings on things, went out of vogue, and now they use nature, natural in place of God, Bible, but both are an appeal to a higher authority that cannot be known. Religious scripture, assuming any have ever been inspired by an actual God, can be cherry-picked and twisted to validate any idea you want to push. Nature, and our limited understanding of it through science, can be cherry-picked and twisted to push any idea you want, and you're never allowed to argue back in either case because we all know you can't argue with God, and you can't argue with nature. Psychologically, these people have the same personality type. Philosophically, they're all drinking the same propaganda, and again, the psychological foundation for it all is fear of change and the loss of control that comes with it. Reactionary regressive, appeals to objective morality based on a subjective authority. God/nature, fear of authority, loss of control over one's self.
As a libertarian, man, I hate starting with the disclaimer. I do not mind RBK calling out our movement on its bull. Every movement, if they are interested in staying principled and intellectually honest, needs a good weeding every once in a while. You did however strike a nerve when you were talking about taxation, RBK. All the money that comes out of a traditional man's pocket to support his wife, consider that a tax. I would consider it a tax if it was actually a tax. By tax I assume you mean the forced payment of your property. All things being equal, people can usually choose whether they want to get married or not. It is that choice that makes it not a tax. Alimony is a different story. This same definition goes for kids. You choose to have kids, therefore it is not a tax to pay for their care. It may be taxing, but it is not a tax. I just felt like you were stretching the definition of a tax too far. I do understand the spirit of the statement. I enjoyed the rest of the video. Thanks, RBK.
Well, actually that was a bit of a baiting tactic, and furthermore I misphrased it. I meant, consider being married to a woman, who without a job, or education, you are bound to support, to be a tax, and consider having a child, which you are legally obligated to support, to be a child tax. Imagine it worked like this: you have a wife, she has no income, the government would support her, but do it by taking money out of your paycheck via tax. What is the difference in this case? In both cases the government is using its authority to remove money from you. You have to support your wife. A minimum set of money has to be deducted. You have to support your child. A minimum amount will be deducted from your pay, whether it is automatically by tax and redistributed by government, or whether it is from your hand. A minimum amount will be deducted. Now the actual problem with making this an actual tax, is it creates a middleman to manage money. This is cumbersome on the system. What I find peculiar, is libertarians, and their massive fear of government getting all up in our lives, will insist that people get married, that is to say, enter into a government-enforced legal contract, and 50% of the time it ends in divorce. You may not just up and divorce and walk your separate ways, you do have to take it to divorce court, again, getting the government unnecessarily involved, and costing you a ton of money, to do what you already have a natural right to do. You and your wife have bodily autonomy. If you don't want to be together anymore, you may get up and walk away, asking for government's permission, and having to pay a huge court cost for the asking of this permission, seems antithetical to libertarianism. Yet look at all the tradcans self-identifying as libertarian. They insist that two autonomous people must get government to interfere with their lives, marriage. They also support the notion if you got the bitch knocked up, you need to pay your child support. Well, how are you going to make them pay that support? By getting big government to use its authority to force the money from you under coercive threat of imprisonment. This is what tradcans preach, all the while trying to call themselves libertarian, and fearing government yet insisting that government get in people's lives to validate marriage. Think about rocking mystery screaming at MGTOW that they are cowards, and need to take that chance, need to find the right one, need to live up to their responsibility, all the while preaching small government and individualism. I'm sorry, but the pro-marriage stance and the runaway from big government stance seems at odds. Again, under a traditional setup, you as a man, are forced to pay for the well-being of your wife. Just try depriving your wife of a basic amenity. Tell me how that shit works out. Tradcans don't believe that women should be working, but instead believe it is proper for a man to place himself under contractual agreement to support another human being, all the while screaming my taxes, government has no right to take my taxes. I'm sorry, but it's all at odds with itself. A part of me suspects the libertarian, is more upset over the notion that his taxes go to support someone else's choices, when it is a situation where he does not believe people should have a choice. It's almost a matter of saying I want to live my life how I want, and I want everyone to live their lives like I want them to, and anyone that deviates from my approved of lifestyle, shall not get the benefit of doing so by the flexibility given to them by my tax money, though I am more than happy to use a system funded by other people's taxes to live my life as I see fit, and I base that suspicion off of either Rush Limbaugh, or Michael Savage, going off about some whore that wanted the government to pay for her birth control. He went on and on about her fucking so much, that she needed the government to support her birth control so she could continue a life of being a complete whore. Let's be honest here, about what he was upset about. He doesn't approve of her lifestyle, of her being loose. She needs to be a proper frigid lady and keep her legs closed until marriage. The notion that the government could in any way support her decision to go against his approved lifestyle, is what he was angry about. I remember him talking about the taxpayer, oh the taxpayers, oh those poor taxpayers having to fund this whore's lifestyle, yet, without birth control, she is just going to get knocked up and cost the poor taxpayers 100 times the cost in welfare. So I say by all means pay for the woman's birth control. It'll be cheaper than paying for her horde of children she has by not having birth control. The issue isn't money, the issue isn't government treading on me, the issue is this woman was living a lifestyle he didn't approve of, and I suspect a lot of this not my taxes bullshit is often just a matter of, shit has to work the way I want it to work, even if it somehow costs me more money in the long run. I don't want to fund people's options to live outside of my view of proper behavior. I forget who it was, but someone wrote in my comments something about I don't know how I feel about my taxes going to support a woman's choices, and instantly, I thought of Rush Limbaugh or Michael Savage, or whoever it was, ranting about the whore who wants the taxpayers to support her choice to be a whore and fuck every guy in town. And maybe I'm wrong, and that wasn't his motive. Now take a look at this guy, Parsalien100, who writes, I'm not paying for free daycare for women who spread their legs and were not smart enough to have that little fucker ripped out of them and thrown in the trash. The whole damn point of MGTOW is not paying for women, and yet you advocate a system where all men, MGTOW tradcan mangino etc., be forced to pay for women in the form of taxes to support daycare. Well, first off, it isn't only men that are paying, it's women's taxes too that are paying for it. Secondly, it's not only women who would benefit from free daycare, it's men too. Thirdly, a woman that works will pay more taxes in her lifetime, thus her taxes over her lifetime will pay far more than the amount in which she took from the system for a few years of daycare before the child was old enough to go to school. A bit like a bank investment, you loan a person $30,000 to get their business started, and they pay you back $40,000 over 5 years. You made a $10,000 profit. How's that for paying for someone's choices? Again, a person that sits home and doesn't work, will pay less taxes than the person that does work. The person who works over a lifetime, even at a friggin' minimum wage job, will pay more into taxes than a few years of daycare. Realize your taxes are already funding public school, which is every single child regardless family structure, being babysat by the school 13 years of its life. Holy cow, and yet not a whole lot of screaming about that? Now I can tell from your language, Parsalien100, that you are not a tradcan, but understand if she rips the little fucker out and throws it in the trash, that is going to cost money for her abortion if she can't afford it. If she can't afford it, then you'll pay for 18 years of its welfare and medical care. This will ultimately cost you infinitely more than its temporary daycare, plus you'll be paying for 13 years of its education regardless of anything, if it is born. Come hell or high water, you're going to pay taxes for the child unless the woman has the money to pay for the abortion and does so. I can assure you, under my proposed solution, you cannot possibly spend any more money than you already are. You are angered at the idea that women will cost you money, and yet under the current system, women are costing you even more money via welfare. At least if they had daycare, they'd get off their ass and work and pay taxes and ultimately alleviate the burden to your wallet. Again, you'd be saving money and paying less to prop up the female sex, and again, this is a gender-neutral policy so it will benefit men in that regard. And in the future, when there is more single fathers, and there is surrogacy, and there is the artificial womb, and there is more marriages where the woman makes equal or greater than her husband, there will just be more men with children. The gender-neutral daycare benefits everyone, and because of these daycare centers being so utilized since it is on the tax dollar just like the schools, there will be more people employed to work at these daycare centers, just like adding another 5 or 6 grades to school would create more teacher positions. Everyone wins. Men win, women win, families win, employees win, corporations win, since they will be getting a tax deduction from the parental leave. the economy wins, the tax pool goes up as a result of more people having jobs that they otherwise would not have had. Christ almighty, everyone wins. The only fear going on here is the fear of change. And one more thing I want to point out. When a new policy is enacted, that runs on taxes, it does not automatically equate to a raise in taxes. Sometimes it can be taken out of other programs. For example, absolutely end all welfare. You have a child, too bad, you do not get welfare to support it. You get off your ass and get a job to support it. Oh, but who will watch the kid while I am working? Government paid daycare. That's who. Now get a job, hood rat. No free ride for having a womb. Maybe we can yank the taxes away from domestic violence shelters that unlawfully discriminate against men. Maybe we can stop supporting RAIN and other feminist groups whose sole purpose is to manufacture artificial men are evil, women are victims statistics. Obviously that won't happen until misandry is defeated, but I am not even really proposing society push for such a bill tomorrow anyhow. But again, I want to come back to this notion that my taxes are paying for people's choices. I highly suspect a lot of this rhetoric is a smokescreen. I suspect many of these people would rather have 10 times the amount of their tax money go to support, to condition, to force people to live by their approved lifestyle, than to save taxes by giving people choices to do something they don't want. Again, I bring up the Michael Savage thing where he is screaming bloody murder about this woman wants you the taxpayer, to fund her fuckfest, her slutty lifestyle. Yet, I think a part of him knows that if she gets knocked up without birth control, we'll all be paying a hell of a lot more. And the real issue is we must incentivize women to keep their legs closed until marriage. We can't give them the flexibility to be sexually liberated whores. Just like with the backlash I am hearing now, mostly from tradcans, who don't want their taxes going to fund women's choices to be career women, when their place is barefoot and in the kitchen submitting to their husband like the good Lords Jesus and Allah command, or as an atheist tradcan would say the way nature intended. And again, I say mostly tradcans, because I think what's his face is a mid-toe. Anyhow, that is some of what I wanted an excuse to springboard into when I talked about consider it a tax and shut the fuck up. I made the mistake of not phrasing it properly, but the point was to antagonize, to bait, the libertarians into providing me with certain arguments to help me dissect some of their beliefs. I didn't get the exact type of comments I was hoping to bait out of them, but close enough.
I'm totally against traditional gender roles and don't consider myself a Republican or even a libertarian. I agree with you on just about everything. That said, I'm not even against income taxes, but I am completely against progressive tax brackets. Why? Because taxing someone at a higher percentage, based on how much of their own time and effort they put into being successful, is a disincentive. Why punish people for being responsible and making good choices in life, while simultaneously rewarding other people for being irresponsible and making very poor decisions? Also, I have to wonder if socialism weakens the human gene pool, because I've noticed that it seems to result in the genetically weakest mentally, physically, etc., breeding the most, while the genetically strongest seem to be too busy footing the bill, to breed as irresponsibly. Idiocracy much?
I agree with all of that. Progressive tax brackets are a punishment for succeeding. It's like giving easy questions to the dumbest kids in class, and hard questions for the smartest kids in class, then bumping up the dumb kids with an extra grade point and penalizing the smart kids by deducting a grade point so that everyone graduates with a C average. It's an effort to create equal outcome, not an equal opportunity, as I have discussed many times in the past with cultural Marxism. And of course, you guessed it, it is Marxian-inspired logic. When this is done economically, it is Marxism. When this is done culturally, it is cultural Marxism. Oh, and you silly geese thought I could go a whole video without saying cultural Marxism. Anyhow, I am against the progressive bracket. Everyone gets the same opportunities. Outcomes will vary by ability. However, one could make the argument that those who are born filthy rich have opportunities by virtue of their money. I mean, let's face it, the man born to the ghetto is not provided with the same opportunities as the man born to the father of a billionaire. And there is some truth that an extra 1% tax to the rich elite could reduce taxes to the entire middle and lower class. Like, the top 1.5% have around 90% of the world's money. Don't quote me on that exact figure, but the slightest tax raised to the filthy rich, rolling in the money, a degree of money they never know was gone, could significantly lower the necessary taxes of the middle class and poor. However, I remain against it due to the slippery slope principle. Once we start taking more from the wealthy, and giving more to the poor, the more we play this game of artificially creating an equal outcome. It may begin with raising the taxes by 1% to the rich 1.5%, thereby lowering taxes to everyone else by 5%, but eventually it would be an additional 1% per 20,000, then 40,000, then 80,000 or whatever have you, and eventually fine-tuning those numbers until regardless of what you do, you will have a net worth approximately equal to every other citizen, and an economy cannot function on every human being having an equal, or roughly equal net worth. And yes, socialism, in its extreme, does weaken the gene pool. Life is based on survival of the fittest, not survival of the equal. Those who are better, more fit as determined by environment, shall thrive. Those who are unfit shall perish. This is the mechanism of biological evolution, to constantly change the biological organism to be forever more adapted to an ever-changing environment. However, social Darwinism also fails because it presupposes a person's fitness by inaccurate standards. Example, Stephen Hawking can't speak or walk, he's worthless to our society, let him die. Or Beethoven is deaf, euthanize him, he has nothing to contribute. And there is an argument to be made that a community is based on the protection of people with different skills benefiting those who are weak in skills. A tailor can make beautiful clothes, but can't build a house. The weakness of not being able to build a house is offset by the carpenter who will build the house in exchange for new clothes for his family. Each person's weakness is offset by someone else's strength. In a capitalist society, all exchanges of strengths and weaknesses is done voluntarily. In a communist society, all strengths and weaknesses are decided by the government. I think most people will agree that letting the cook, the tailor, the carpenter, blacksmith, and watchmaker discuss among themselves what their needs and abilities are, is far superior to having a bureaucrat make their decisions for them. The bureaucrat cannot know the needs and abilities of the watchmaker better than the watchmaker. He cannot know the needs and abilities of the blacksmith better than the blacksmith. This is the free market theory at its core, and this is the part of libertarianism I can at least relate to. The common sense shit, however, libertarians tend to get religious and absolutist with this shit. There's going to come a point in time when the blacksmith needs iron, the miner says I want $1,000 per pound of iron or sell your daughters to me, your choice. And this greed, this monopoly hurts the community. No one is allowed to take an axe and start mining for iron ore, because the miner bought the mines fair and square, he gets to set his price on a valuable resource. This resource is so precious that the entire economy of the community suffers. The blacksmith has no metal to work with, thus the carpenter has no nails to build houses with, neither the jeweler or the watchmaker can do their job without iron. Most importantly, nails and tools can't be made of steel without iron, and copper is too soft, and other metals are far too rare as it is. The whole community now suffers from one man's greed. The idea that no one will do business with the miner is fine, he will sell his iron to foreign territories for a nice price, under the contractual agreement that they do not trade with the people of his town. He, by virtue of monopolizing one valuable resource, has effectively gained control over the fate of his community. The whole purpose of a community is that every individual acts to benefit the others. Thus being a society is more beneficial than being an individual. It becomes in the best interest of the community that the miner be forced into parting with iron, either at a fixed and reasonable price, or have his land confiscated for harming the community with his greed. This decision shall be demanded by the people, and carried out by the government, the official community authority. This keeps the community strong by alleviating exploitation that would lower the standard of living for the community. The purest libertarian would stand there and scream free market, you have no right. Sometimes regulations are needed. It's always a balancing act. As a rule of thumb, the more the market sets the price and policy, the better. But there will need to be exceptions, for the benefit of the community as a whole, since the point of being a community is mutual benefit. Sorry for the ramble, but yeah, all in all, I am opposed to progressive tax brackets. Now, I want to straighten out a few things. I am most certainly jumping to conclusions by presuming these two to be libertarians, but the argument themselves are libertarian arguments, and I get you can have an authoritarian or libertarian argument, without subscribing to the philosophy, but I use their arguments as a springboard to go off on a bit of an anti-libertarian spiel, and I am not necessarily anti-libertarian. How can I explain this? It's a bit like the story of the atheist that arrives in Ireland and a group of thugs come up to him and ask, "Are you Catholic or Protestant?" And the guy answers, "I'm an atheist," and the leader of the thugs says, "Okay, but are you a Catholic atheist or a Protestant atheist?" What I am saying is, our movement is so wrought with leftism and rightism, that our thinking tends to be polarized. I've warned in the past that if you come up with an idea that may benefit men, you'll often run into resistance by someone claiming that won't work. That's no good. You're as bad as the feminists, etc., because you are preaching a leftist idea, a rightist idea, an individualist or collectivist idea, and this is why I said we must totally rise above it. We must rise above not only the left and right proselytizing, but we must free ourselves, our minds, of these notions. Once we have cleansed ourselves of all partisan political brainwashing, we can see more clearly and begin to move forward. One of the reasons feminism was so successful is they didn't give a shit about anything other than their vagina. They pushed for whatever suited women. To hell with if it hurt or helped government. To hell with if it hurt or helped corporations. To hell with if it hurt or helped men. To hell with if it hurt or helped their race, their nation, or anything. It was all about, does it benefit women? We must begin thinking the same way. Will it hurt or help men? That's all that matters. We cannot afford to bog ourselves down trying to fix our gender inequalities, and fixing the economy, and fixing the government, and saving our culture, and righting the wrongs and upholding justice, and fixing the world's problems too. We can't worry about building a utopia. We must focus on what benefits men. Now an argument can be made that if the government grows too big, the corporations start packing up, the taxes get raised, the economy goes south, then this hurts men. Well, yes, but it also hurts women. And you see, that's the problem. Women push for what they want, do what they want, and know that men will act as the responsible parent and fix everything for them. If women-only programs hurts the economy, men will just work that much harder to keep the economy afloat. If our programs raise taxes, men will just have to sacrifice and drop financial supporting for something else. Like maybe that stupid NASA. I can hear the women saying boys wanting to send a dick-shaped vessel to the moon. Good grief. They'll have to deal with it, not us. We got what we want. The boys will make sure to work overtime and make more sacrifices. Women know this, just like they are not stupid enough to believe they can win a fight with a man 100 pounds heavier than them. But they still get up in a man's face acting tough. That's because they know they're not getting hit, and they know if they do hit, they'll have other men to bail them out. That's their female privilege. They do this on a grander scale. They can be all about their vagina, and to hell with the consequences. The boys will be there to have endless debates about stimulus packages and immigration and labor unions and taxes, capitalism and communism. Women make a mess, and boys will fight each other arguing over the best way to clean it up. Us men need to push for what is in our best interest, and to hell with everything else. And if that breaks the system, shuts the whole thing down, so be it. Maybe the system needs to die. It is currently a misandrous system that locks men up for not being able to pay child support for a kid he can't see. This is a system that robs men blind and gives it to women. Maybe the death of this system isn't such a bad idea. Again, all I push for is what works to the benefit of the male sex, and I am thinking long term. What consequences it might have to women, or the system, is completely not my problem. If the system starts falling apart, and women start their nagging that us men better get our asses in gear and do something about it, we'll just tell them, your turn. I'm not advocating that we break the system. I am advocating that we stop sacrificing ourselves for it. Now it just so happens that none of what I said will break or even hurt the system. I am just really tossing it out there and getting a head start on future arguments to come. Because who knows, one day we might have to push for something that is so selfish it will burden the system and it will hurt women. Too fucking bad. It's not my goal, but it's not my problem. And again, to go back onto the libertarianism bit, I say traditionalist, I say conservative, I say tradcan, and I know that libertarianism is not inherently a left or right thing. However, realize, that's just theory. In America, right here right now, if you are libertarian, you are almost exclusively a conservative. And I've heard that there are libertarian leftists, but whatever, I would be really interested in what the fuck their politics looks like. And at the end of the day, if they voted left, they got Obama. There is Democratic left, and Republican right. As Stardusk said, the Tea Party was a purist libertarian movement. It became pretty much mainstream right-wing conservative Republican. Well, of course it did. Libertarian is one thing in theory, but under the American system, it is going to end up just being a type of Republican. Again, I hear you can be left and identify as libertarian. I need to see that. I need to hear them say, not my taxes, keep government small, but go socialism. Look, for my purposes, the libertarians among us are pretty much a part of the tradcans. This fear of taxes, fear of big government, it is the root of this. MRAs are as bad as the feminists, bit that we hear so often. It's just traditionalism. It may not be traditionalist by desire, but it is by result. I once said I was a theoretical libertarian. Allow me to clarify. I believe the federal government needs to back up and give states their freedom. I believe states need to back up and give citizens their freedom. I think taxes need to be slashed. I think the law books need to be reduced to about 1/4 to 1/8 of its current size. Maybe ending the Federal Reserve System would be a good thing. I don't know, but we could at least audit the Fed. We need far more Federal Reserve transparency. However, the End the Fed sign holding Ron Paul supporters know nothing about economics and have no intellectual authority by which to advocate such an act. These are people that read some John Birch Society propaganda and read the protocols of the Elders of Zion, and are convinced that an international Illuminati-type shadow government of Jewish Zionist bankers rule the world. You ever get one of those scam emails that talk about how this guy in a foreign country has a trick to manipulate your US dollars through the banking conversion system? Give him $1,000 and he can give 100,000 in return within a month. You ever get those emails and wonder who in the hell would be dumb enough to fall for that shit? Well, it's those guys holding the End the Fed signs and demanding to go back to the gold standard. Again, I don't understand economics enough to weigh in with any authority, but neither do the paranoid doomsday gold standard crowd with their stockpile of doomsday food rations in their bomb shelters. I believe all American soldiers everywhere need to come home, and all nations need to pull their own damn weight and stop having us support them. After all, most of that money in one way or another ends up in the hands of banking and corporate profiteers, and Ron Paul, assuming he was actually being honest about the things he said, would have probably made the best damn president we've had in about the past 100 years. Smallest possible government, fewest laws as possible on the law books, lowest possible taxes. Notice the word possible, meaning, so long as it can function within reason to give us what we need to function for maximum prosperity. I sometimes see the libertarian as an anarchist that compromises. They realize pure anarchism will never work, but libertarianism is a functioning compromise. Now all that shit about Federal Reserve and Ron Paul, forget it, it's not important. All of it takes a backseat to the liberation of the male sex. Those political positions were all a matter of where I stand matter-of-factly, not that I put any serious endorsement behind it. It's all someone else's problem. It's all far too political mainstream and thus subject to corruption and stupidity. It's not my goal. I'm not here to save our economy or fix our deficit or save the world. I am here to benefit men. I am here to take the veil off the eyes of my fellow man, to offer him that red pill, to help him be a soldier for our cause, and to get the ball rolling for a battle that will wage a long time. I've heard the argument so many times that we, MRA or sometimes just MGTOW, are useful tools for the commies. We got by NEA stating that we all, men and women, have to get along because that's what big spooky government wants. They want us men and women at each other's throats. It's what benefits them, and in a roundabout way what she is saying, knowingly or unknowingly, is women did wrong, and that's not good. But us men need to just settle down and live with it. We can't get all uppity and fight back because, big guff gonna get us. All the problems between men and women, has nothing to do with women, that's big government. It's the socialism, communism, collectivism, big government. They prefer women, it suits their agenda for the moment. Don't blame women, blame the commies, blame the leftists, blame big government. Poor innocent women done got hijacked by evil people, and we can't fight back. We just gotta settle down and sing kumbaya, or big government's gonna get us. It's the conservative argument, the traditionalist argument, the libertarian argument, the all-around rightist argument, and I am tired of it. No left, no right, we go forward, we march forward with purpose and attitude, we leave the game behind us, we don't pander to the left or pander to the right, we march forward, and in time, make the left, and or right, pander to us, without giving a drop of compromise, make them pander to us. All this corporation versus the churches versus the government, the capitalism and the communism, it's a battle, and the battle is played on the much older and larger battlefield of gynocentrism. Let us win the war for our freedom, our equality, our humanity, then we can grumble about fucking taxes, federal versus states' rights, our unions and our banking problems. We can go back to the mainstream bellyaching, once we have thoroughly rescripted our culture. And just to reiterate, my plan to have corporations, who fall in a certain criteria, to be forced to distribute more paid parental leave equally to both sexes, would not create a massive welfare state. If anything, it would produce more tax money into the pool, by women working more, and thus alleviate the tax burden to the male pocket. I'm just making it clear now, if, for the purpose of male prosperity, we need to manipulate the system in a way that does end up costing more taxes, or in some way incentivizes government to grow, too fucking bad. I've always heard, even in the older days of the anti-feminist community, the argument that feminism has not created independence for women, it has only resulted in taxing the family twice. This is a part of that libertarian big gaffophobia not my taxes bullshit. Can someone explain to me, because possibly I am missing something here, how women leaving the kitchen and having careers has resulted in nothing but taxing the family twice? I understand that if the husband brings home $1,000 a month, and pays, let's just say 30% income tax, that he gets to keep $700. And if the wife is making $1,000 a month, she pays 30%, thus keeps $700, and these two are being taxed each, which equals twice. But the thing people seem to be missing is the income is also doubled. So the family taxes went from $300 to $600, but the income went from $700 to $1,400. How does this differ from the traditionalist man making $2,000, paying his 30% and having $1,400 left over? Actually, if anything, a man that makes $2,000 may be subject to an income bracket penalty and pay 40%, thereby the family winds up with even less money, depending on where you live and whether or not you are subject to a progressive tax, etc. And the numbers I am using are just figurative numbers, in an effort to simplify the math and cover many nations. And an argument I have heard is that women going to work doubled the labor pool, thus everyone's paycheck got split in half. Okay, there is a lot of truth to that. According to some study I seen just yesterday, completely by chance, we are earning 70%, after inflation being accounted for, of what we were from the 60s or 70s. But in a way that might have saved us. Paying Americans less wage means less of it has to go overseas. But that's getting into a field of economics that is over my head. But that's a common argument I hear, is Americans are asking for too much and so big corp will pack up and go overseas. I swear, you just can't win. If you insist that regulations be implemented to protect workers and help making two-income households more functionable, the Tradcan will tell you these regulations will get corporations to pack up, but then they'll turn around and bitch that because women are working, the corporations have practically cut our pay in half. Funny how that works out, don't you think? Am I the only person who feels like maybe the Tradcans are just pulling excuses out of their ass to defend their get back in the kitchen woman sentiment? Anyhow, what good is it for the average man to make twice the money if he has to pay twice as much money for his upkeep and the upkeep of his wife? Sounds to me like it evens out for the man, just sucks more for women, which is why you will see them walking away from feminism and supporting the easy living of traditionalism. Plus, it is not wise to have the entire family dependent upon one person's income. What if that person is fired, laid off, becomes ill? Then how will they survive? For all the people with the nuclear family fetish, seems to me like you'd want some kind of safety net for your family, unless of course all of this horse shit about the importance of the almighty family is nothing more than a prop. In fact, I rather suspect that the well-being of family, due to its importance, is not the issue. But the existence of the nuclear family as a prop serves you psychologically or politically. Kinda reminds me of the pro-lifer who will go through hell and high water to make sure that fetus in the womb is born, because life is sacred, killing it is murder, but the moment it is born, no welfare, no daycare, no health care, no nothing, that fucking baby is thrown to the wolves. If that baby starves to death or dies of preventable illness, tough titties, all that mattered was it got born. After that it can die tonight for all I care. And you realize the sanctity and preciousness of life is a delusion, a prop to serve a more important and personal psychological foundation. Same with this nuclear family fetish. Stop hiding behind the love of family, when it is more often than not an excuse, a prop, a proxy to something else. A two-income family is vastly safer than a one-income family, even if the total amount is the same. Furthermore, by holding to the traditional role, women are forced to keep their legs closed and wait until you put a ring on their finger. They are forced into this for survival, therefore you aren't getting laid until you put a ring on her finger. Marriage or die a virgin, that is almost the way it once was. It had to be, for women to survive. They couldn't afford to give it away when their life depended on a man buying it. Now that they are independent and don't need a man, they can afford to give it up for free, for the personal gratification of the experience. And as a result men get lots of pussy without marriage, and without the need to have to pay. This benefits men. Back to us being taxed twice. We either live in a society where men make more money because they are the only ones working, but only get laid when they have purchased a very expensive wife, or we live in a society where men get paid less because the job market has a pool of females to draw from, but sex is pretty much free. More than that, the less a woman needs a man, the less likely, or less motivated, she is to use a man. So when women say they don't need us, that's a good thing, because we are not needed, we may to some degree, become wanted. Men and women are at war and always have been because women needed men, men needed women, and in order to get what we absolutely needed from each other, we had to bargain, and that put us men and women on opposite sides of the fence, thus we were always in some way at war with one another. This war will end when neither needs the other, thus the more independent and autonomous men and women are, the less conflict will exist between us. Women's independence is a good thing, all of the romance is bullshit. It's a magician's smoke and mirrors to masquerade the conflict between the sexes, the conflict based on the bargaining based on the needing, In the MGTOW future, men and women will be so independent and autonomous that our motive for conflict will be drastically lowered, and once that happens, anything is possible. Maybe humanity will civilize itself. I'm sorry I really have gone off on a tangent. When women get taxed, they begin to pay for their own female-only programs, which means by comparison less of your hard-earned money is going to fund the enemy, funding programs that exclude you, and even attack you. Again, this whole being taxed twice, maybe I am missing something, but it sounds like a bullshit plea to the taxophobic, and I also want to touch on something, this huge fear of big government. Look, government will grow and shrink according to the ever-changing demands of the environment and society. Far too often I see this misunderstanding about government. Some people look at government as if they are a race of aliens that came to this planet, conquered us, and set up rules to enslave us, rather than looking at government as the thing we created for our own benefit. We create Big Brother for ourselves. Government right now, in the US, is currently what gives us the internet freedom we have. It is the ISPs that want to end net neutrality. It is the special interest groups and the PC police, we citizens, that demand a report button exist on every page of every social networking site, and that each site create a 30-page list of shit you can't say, while it is the government upholding the First Amendment. Citizens, we the people, we are the ones that want to silence everyone, not government. At least not this government. We are the ones that march and demand government put up laws to bully some other group around. The idea that big government is automatically evil, is bullshit. The idea that the smaller the government the more free we the people are, is bullshit. How free were the women under a small government that didn't let them vote? I'm not saying women didn't have all their protection status, just that they couldn't vote. How free were the blacks under a small government that didn't see blacks as people? How free were the women that couldn't show off their knees in public? How free were the men that weren't allowed to cuss in public because of obscenity laws? How free were the corporations under small government that were forced by law to close on Sunday due to religious bullshit? How free were we in the 50s and 60s when Elvis couldn't be shown from the waist down, Jim Morrison couldn't say higher on TV, and sitcoms had to show husband and wife in separate beds, and on I Love Lucy, Ricky had to say Lucy was expecting because they weren't allowed to say she was pregnant with little Ricky that all of America tuned in to see. We were a prudish society of Puritans that in many ways allowed the churches to call the shots, all the while we kept humans as property, all under a tiny little government, corporations locking people into lifelong contracts and even setting up stores and paying employees with company credits only valid at company stores, thus creating internal economic bubbles that greatly exploited people, holding them in poverty, and in some cases forcing them into indentured servitude, all under free market small government. Young farm boys, not even 18, were being conscripted into the Civil War, to die for a government that never paid him a penny in his life, and had no type of assistance programs available to anyone. We talk about the freedoms taken from us by Obama and Bush. Are we forgetting the crimes committed by Abraham Lincoln in wartime? Seems to me we were never as free as the nostalgic romantics would have us believe. In fact, in many ways, in our age of internet and sexual liberation, we are more free under a much larger government than we were under a smaller government. And this is not a praise of big government, it is a declaration that the fear of big government is often nothing more than a psychological knee-jerk reaction by those who feel they have no control over their own lives and manifest this feeling into a phobia that there is some powerful wicked force such as the Illuminati or any handful of government conspiracies pulling our strings and making us dance like puppets. It is a projection of their own internal chaos. And this gets projected into the culture and it leads to hysterics that a big government is going to tax us and tax us, thereby growing and strangling us, because that's what it does. It bullies us around for its amusement and serves no purpose but its own power. And while this is not completely unfounded, it is amped up to the point of knee-jerk hysteria, and this hysteria seen all throughout the right wing, is a prevailing mentality in our movement. And as I said, we must let go of those struggles, not abandon the ideas completely, but put those issues on the back burner, and focus on the larger picture, the grander battle, the battle of the sexes and our freedoms as men. Once we have defeated gynocentrism, once we have established our rights as men to be recognized by the government and our culture, as people, then we can resume the miscellaneous battles about taxes and foreign aid and states' rights and so on. Because all of these little battles that we've been so brainwashed into caring about, are small battles being fought on the battlefield of gynocentrism, a battlefield that has existed even in the pre-human era. All mammals, that I am aware of, have their species limited by the productive output of the female, thus protecting the female is of paramount importance, and thus all behaviors in one way or another are wired on the preservation and well-being of the females. This is what we have evolved from, and as humans it still governs our internal drives. All societies are based on this gynocentrism since the purpose of life itself is to live. and to continue this living by way of offspring production. So women have always had the highest value in all societies, the males always competing against other males for mating rights. We do it on an individual level, on a racial level, on a national level. The entirety of human existence based on men competing for pussy, and pussy up on her protected pedestal. Thus it is the oldest, the grandest, of all battles. I find all other struggles to be petty superficial struggles that fit inside the machine of gynocentrism.